Hello, 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 and welcome in, everybody. The arena is ready to go for today. Paladins Premier League Week 12 continues here on Friday. The action is going to be electric, guys. We had a great day yesterday, a lot of big standings implications, and a lot of big stuff to go over. To help bring me the first match, of course, here on the desk is Kresnik. It's going to be a great show for you guys today. We have some high-tier teams playing, obviously SSG, Envy, the Knights, Renegades. Everybody is fighting for those key wins to get themselves in or out of the placement week for HRX.
And these matches all matter, too, at least for SSG's chances
Yes.
and Envy's chances to maintain that auto-qualification placement. I mean, as Envy at this point, they have to just win one game. SSG have to win out. They're definitely hoping that Envy falter in the coming weeks, but after their performance yesterday, hard to say whether that's going to happen or not.
So correct me if I'm wrong, SSG win out, Envy win out. Envy are still safe?
Envy has to win one game, I think, to make it for sure.
Just one game. It was that key loss yesterday for SSG against Envy that kind of took their fate out of their own hands. Obviously, there's still a chance for them, but they have to fight out and they have to keep winning and hope Envy drop a game. Na'Vi and IPs, you can see the asterisk there, already qualified, locked in top 4 no matter what happens for HRX 2019. Now, again, the brackets we were referencing, there's going to be two things going in. A placement week that happens before DreamHack Atlanta. That is double elimination. A lot of these bottom 4 teams from the PPL, the minor league teams, the console league teams, what everybody's fighting for all year long. That's where that happens. The top 4 from the PPL, they're headed straight to DreamHack, right? They're headed into that 8-team single elimination bracket for the hardware, for the prize money, for the glory that is the Paladins World Championship. But we're not quite there yet. Still have a couple of orders of business to get to here in the Premier League. Of course, our first matchup for today is the Pittsburgh Knights versus Spacestation Gaming. And a lot of what we've talked about with the Pittsburgh Knights, specifically even yesterday when we talked about this is a 6 versus 7 matchup. But in reality, the gap between the Pittsburgh Knights and the Renegades was very clearly shown there. That's, this Pittsburgh Knights team, man, they made a lot of improvements from Phase 1 to Phase 2, meaning that record carrying over, that hole that they dug themselves in, has kind of let them fly under the radar a little bit. They're really a solid team here in Phase 2 as they're getting the hands all warmed up. They love those hand warmers.
Everybody does. They must have bought a jumbo pack or something because I always happen to have them coming in. But I mean, they've been warming up. I guess those hand warmers are helping them out quite a bit. But they've been kind of growing and growing over time and digging themselves out a little bit. But they've still kind of been struggling, I think, to be what they expect themselves to be. I know they hold themselves in a high regard, and I think that's kind of been harming them in some of these matchups. Like lose 1 or 2 matches in it, and maybe they falter a little bit mentally. Maybe they're not ready to move on and make it a best of 1, like they always say, like G-Bunny always says for them. That's the mentality they want to have going in. Every single game is its own unique experience. You don't want to carry anything before it. And Bunny, I think, is a pretty big leader in terms of keeping the team's emotional game high.
He's always smiling. And I think that's something that I've really enjoyed. G-Bunny, relatively new to the scene when you consider some of the veterans on his squad. I think he's got a great kind of personality and outlook, especially when, you're dealing with some higher emotion players, right? Cuss Cutie, known to, be very, very high and very, very low if things aren't going that well. And G-Bunny, like I said, he's always kind of been smiling, and it's really important given the role that he plays. Look at this. He's playing the Ashe, guys. He's playing that off-tank. He's playing one of the harder, more difficult roles, I think, this year, just because the amount of characters you have to play, the priority in which your characters are getting drafted, you have got to be on point for multiple characters every single game. There's a 90% chance you're getting first picked or top 3'd in this draft. So if G-Bunny is not on, and this goes for a lot of teams. I feel this way about Kanga super strongly as well. I feel this way about SSG. If your off-tank is not there, applying the pressure and setting the pace for a game, man, your life is going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, think about those carry-level off-tanks. That's why they're so important. Think about the 2 bans. I mean, it's Makoa Atlas every single game, and those characters fill that role. I mean, we know Bunny can do it. We know that Sadak can do it on the other side, too. It is really crucial, I think, to have that flexibility and to be able to pull that out in the 1%, 2% of the games where those characters aren't banned.
And it's such a difficult role, I think, to quantify sometimes in terms of quality. Because sometimes, when you do play stuff like Sadak plays, like that Ruckus, it's not about your kills and your deaths. It's about what you did to affect the battlefield. What kills and deaths did you do? Are we getting a foot dab here?
Honestly, I don't even think he knows his camera's live. I think that's just a natural Sadak.
It's just part of the pre-game routine. He's backing up. I want to see a foot dab, but like I was saying, sometimes it's not about the kills and the deaths, specifically when you look at this guy being a Ruckus player. It's about what you did to shape and affect the battlefield and the pace of each and every single team fight. And it's something that I think you need to have that confidence in yourself, right? You need to not be worried about your stats. You don't want to be that, worried about being Deathless War Doom as that off-tank, right? You got to get in there.
There's a reason War Doom never played off-tank.
And you got to do what you got to do, man. And I think Sadak is, frankly, at a spot in his career. He's got a lot of charisma. He's got that personality. He's got confidence in himself. So where, he can get in there and turbo feed on Terminus and laugh about it and kind of shake it off and not let him affect the rest of his set.
I think that's part of how, because it's so hard to quantify what an off-tank brings to the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that Terminus game aside, because he absolutely brought nothing to that game. It is really hard to say what an off-tank does. You can go 8-16, and you can be the reason your team wins every fight. There was a NIP game recently where Bonker went super negative, but he was our player of the match because he was just in, and they were always dealing with him. So hard to. There's no stat at the end of the game where it's like, oh, he had 37 space made.
Yeah, could you imagine?
There's no. There's no way to look at that.
It's impossible to measure, and that's why I just feel it's tough to be a good frontline player, but kind of when you see it, right? You gotta just look at these guys and the way they play, and they have these sense, because it's a lot of hindsight looking back at the play that they made. Like, oh, it made a lot of sense to go in there, but it's like you had to have that foresight to see the vision of what you want this team fight to look at and how you want to control it. Frog Isle banned out, Frozen Guard as well. Fish Market removed from the pool. Timber Mill scratched off the list as well. Those are the map bans for the set. Each team gets 2. Now we'll head to the map screen pretty shortly. But I frankly have pretty high expectations for the Knights. I think the middle of the pack right now, Na'Vi, and kind of to an extent, it's almost like the reverse with NiP, right? We were talking about with the Knights, they're flying under the radar. Their first phase kind of makes them look a little bit worse than they are.
Yeah.
NiP are kind of in a slump right now. Hopefully they can get it turned around before HRX. But the middle of the pack of this league, places kind of 3, honestly through like 6, are really competitive with each other. Top to bottom, it feels like anyone could take games off of anyone in this league.
I think 2-7. I would even expand that further. I think 2-7, it really is open for anybody. And Renegade's on a really good day. I mean, they can do it too. Absolutely.
I know. I almost said, I almost ventured to say, we'll say 2 through 8.
Why not?
It's just anybody's league at this point. A lot of the stuff, again, mathematically locked in because records did not reset. A lot of teams grabbing their footings. A lot of teams making changes phase 1 to phase 2. Knights are definitely one of those teams, and they definitely made big strides here in phase 2 to improve themselves. But now it's about getting hot at the right time, and that time is now. Heading into the placement weeks, the last couple of weeks of the Premier League, you want to kind of put a stamp on your reputation and say, this is who we are right now. We will beat you. We will beat this team 4-0. We will beat this team 4-2. We might lose 4-3 to Na'Vi and take them to 7, right? You want to make your statement and let everybody know how strong you are.
But here's the thing. Do you want to give away everything? Because this is the Worlds patch. Every strat is going to be able to be used in Worlds. Nothing's going to be changing from now to then. We're already seeing something kind of interesting, I think, coming out from the Knights. Maybe a bit of their adaptation versus SSG. Double flank bans, neither on the table, and after that, they take Willow also out of the picture. That's 3 bans that I would say are basically targeting FRZ, targeting his role on the team. I find that kind of interesting, though, because I feel like his champ pool is so massive. I don't think you can really ban him out.
People don't give him enough credit, probably, for that.
Maybe. I mean, I thought he had a great pip game yesterday.
That's where I wanted to head next.
Torn out of their hands. Yeah, like they have a lot of flexibility. You can still play a Drogoz on this map, especially if you have one of his hardest counters in the Strix.
Early Ruckus, and I mean, we talked about it a little because it's an iconic champion for Sadak, but this early Kresnik, I mean,
Warder's Gate.
Just that big, those jump jets. It's kind of fun. I like that Ruckus has a map. He has his spot that he can be snagged super early. Ruckus has always been kind of A+, plug and play. If you got the player that likes to play it and they know what they're doing, you can make it work into a lot of stuff, but he's never had that, like, this is my map. People will select me here early, and Warder's Gate is quickly evolving into that. The Knights so far have Willow, Cassie, and Barrett. Cassie traditionally one of the better matchups that at least comes to mind for me when I think of Ruckus.
Yeah, the big game is brutal into the Ruckus. Very difficult for him because he can't really block anything. I mean, he has his flux generator, the personal shield that can come up, but it doesn't really do a lot. Kind of going to suffer from the same thing that I'm sure Rom will, where that damage coming in and there's really not much you can do to mitigate it at all. I also think that this Ruckus pick, by the way, is partially to keep the pseudo counter away from the Strix. Because those rockets, that dive potential is really strong. His stealth isn't quite as effective against that consistent firing that Ruckus can do. Interesting, though, the rest of their comp, they don't go for a point tank. They don't want that Inara. They go for the Khan instead. They want that execute ultimate, take them out of the picture, and I guess a little more hit scan cleanup potential. That's a lot of direct damage coming out from SSG right now. It's going to be very difficult for anybody on the Knights to really take a fight if SSG are deathballing hard enough.
It's a good thought indeed. I like thing you brought up about the counter to Strix. A lot going into these picks for SSG. Drafting, man, these players are all extremely good at left-clicking heads. The drafting is such a huge part of Paladins. SSG so far, theirs screams kind of aggressive to me, right? Ruckus, Khan, Furia, that wants to go in. Traditionally, successful scenarios around IO have also been rooted in aggression. Throw the Fox on point, and everyone, including IO, gets in there. But I don't know that this Knights composition necessarily screams aggression to me, given that you have kind of the Cassie and the Willow. They're not really super divey characters.
I think they could make it work. Willow has that dive potential. With the Flutter, it goes so far. You can go in, but going in afterwards, like after the Flutter, if you don't immediately win, once your DR runs out, now you're just kind of waiting till the end. But I don't know. I think you're right about that kind of lack of aggression. But if the fight goes long, if the Knights pressure but take it slowly, they're going to have the advantage. They have the IO. They have the point pressure that SSG is going to have to play around. If SSG don't win that fight within 30%, I think it might be too hard to wrestle it out from the Knights' hands.
It's certainly a good one, and I love to see IO, man. I love to get more data on this character. How are people using her? In what ways can she be successful? The Knights, if anything, yesterday showed us that they can really bring the heat heading into overtime, right? They can make these almost impossible scenarios a reality for their opponents. Guys, the drafts are locked in. Both look solid. Both have their merits, but only one can stand tall. Let's get it down to the casters for game number 1.
Thank you very much, guys. Dolson and Gormizer down here in the booth to bring you set number 1. And it's a fun one, Gore. I mean, this one, SSG, 3 wins ahead of the Knights standings-wise, but totally different days yesterday. The Knights riding high, a big 4-0 win, and SSG looking good in a few of those games and drop it in 6 to Envy. So potential bounce back for them, potential riding that momentum for the Knights.
I mean, it was a pretty devastating blow in that loss as well. I mean, that Bright Marsh game, that one you could sing that to the ages and just write it down. If SSG lose on out from the rest of the split, that's the turning point, right? And it was so well played from Mr. Hayes and Rock Monkey to kind of keep them alive in that game. Definitely punishing on SSG, but this time around, they do have a distinct hit scan and range advantage as they come into it. I just wanted to see what they can do with it. No kind of generalized point tank. Khan maybe going to be the closest thing they have to it. Rachao is going to be on that, but not as big health bars as you're going to see on the Knights.
And we saw, I think it was Envy on Serpent Beach yesterday. We're running kind of the dual off tank. It was Khan and Ash for them maybe, and it wasn't quite as fruitful. Too much point tank presence for SSG in that one, but they're feeling okay about the start to this game. Luna on the point actually is going to keep the Knights in contention, not able to burn it down enough just yet. Look at how much they're getting for it, 60%, despite losing the mid-fight handily. The Knights grab themselves about 3/4, 2/3 of the way there, thanks to Luna.
And I'll have to say this vocally just to make sure it's heard, but I love the fact that we have Freeze God on Strix, we have Ares here on Leon. It fits the team perfectly. It plays really well. Plus, we've been talking about the fact that Leon is a really good champion for them. That for a while there, it just seemed like they were ignoring her completely. But she fits perfectly. A double kill there. He trades out with Simsalou, but exactly what you need out of him.
Yeah, big double kill from the Leon is going to set Spacestation Gaming up well. Despite getting 60% or so thanks to Luna, the Knights do lose a couple members. SSG not able to convert that into a successful capture just yet. First in flame of the game, though, ready to go. Mid-Tau throws it out. Freeze God, first blood. Rochelle battle shout down beneath, keeps his team nice and topped off. Another good shot from Freeze God. Sadak into the Hexafire, dashes away. Overtime continuing to hold firm as Midtown adds another one. Be Gone doesn't find too much. Sadak gets the kill. It looks like SSG are in control.
Honestly, this is where the Knights draft starts to shake things up. It's not just what they have picked here, although they do only have that one kill onto Ares that they've been able to kind of reclaim. It's more they banned Maeve and Eevee, and I think they're the ones who are hurt more because of it. No one is able to get back there to deal with Freeze God, and he's 5,000 damage above the next highest, who's 3,000 damage above anyone on the Knights. It's 8,000 damage total for Freeze God. That is uncontested, and no one is able to deal with them. They're finally able to find something else here, but I mean, when it comes to mid-fights, I don't see Freeze God being under a lot of pressure unless they can figure out a much better flank route for Simsaloo.
Well, the slash lines tell you the same story. 3-1 and 3, 4-1 and 5. Those are the only 2 deaths for SSG. Nobody else has fallen and gone back to base. And it's a big turning point in Ares. It's a continued thread now. You brought it up earlier. The treat that it's been to watch him kind of get comfortable on Leon, and I'm sure SSG feel much the same because he is turning this one upside down. Now it's 6-1 and 5 on the champion. Up, down for the Ashe for G-Bunny. Grabs a stun, but now he's caught out behind the rest of his team, and this one could steamroll into a capture. And it does.
Well, I'm over there focused on how much G-Bunny is doing to create space, and the rest of SSG don't care. They're like, cool, there's an Ashe back there. She ulted. Payload's over here, by the way.
Yeah, by the way.
Just go ahead and walk that one in. That was like twice within the last 2 days that I've been surprised by the end of a game or a round either being able to come down. And both of them have been Knights game. One of them was because the Knights were able to hold on as well as they did in a lot of those. Sometimes a lackluster ending. Whereas this was very, I don't want to say it was lackluster. It was just very surprising. Kind of out of nowhere there for SSG being able to kind of dominate that. They won the fights they needed to win. Freeze God goes into Bulldozer 2, and again, with no one looking at him, that 60% that Luna was able to get, I have a feeling it's not going to happen again.
And, you know, quick look at the damage charts. 20,000 higher than anyone on the Knights is Freeze God, and it's your frontliners who are doing the most damage. Simsaloo and Rakata both down at the very bottom. Something to keep your eyes on here is another Inflame and Hexafire for Sadak. Rakata not able to finish off the kill. He's going to be able to dash out to safety. Finally, Sadak dies. A big double kill from the Leon. Enlightenment out of the doorway. Knights were able to get 78% in the meantime, but a big fight win for SSG puts them right back on the point.
I love when Ares is in this zone. I don't know what it is, and again,
it's awesome.
It's one of those moments, I think, honestly, he is the hinge for SSG that is either going to be successful. Sadak has these moments as well, where sometimes they just don't hit the mark. They're not what you expect. But when they are in this zone working together, I don't know what they ate for breakfast, what they had going on between yesterday and today. This is a team that is built to win. This is a team that took Envy to 7 on the world stage. This is that team that could continue things going forward. Without Rachao, though, with comeback mechanic, the Knights are definitely an advantage.
Yeah, lose a couple of their point, or not even point tanks, they're off tanks there. Maybe the health pool is playing a little bit differently. Pittsburgh Knights able to get themselves onto the board after a pretty abysmal start to this PPL Friday for them. They'll look to tie up this game. But you're right, this is an SSG team that, despite losing yesterday in 6, I mean, this is what you expect and you hope to see from them to be able to keep rolling forward towards Hi-Res Expo.
I just really hope their drafts stay similar to this. One of the biggest issues they had yesterday that I felt was that there were games where they were playing to their strengths, and then there were games they were picking what they'd seen other people do really well with, or picking to take it away from somebody. And once you find yourself in that scenario, it was a great example of how that doesn't always work. The Buck yesterday is a good example. Freeze God playing Buck, no. Evil Eye playing Buck, thumbs up. And those are the two differences that we've been able to see. And it felt like it was that obligatory, hey, play this because it's good on Timbermill, and we don't want them to have it. Being able to lock it down, because you can see night and day performance, a 7-0-9, 16 streak for him. Ares with a double kill right there. He's feeling perfectly fine.
Ares is tearing the Knights apart on this defense. It's a good look for them. 7 streak. Finally, Midtow I mean, he was burning away, closing in on a 20 streak for him. Freeze God is doing the same there at 18. Still top damage, and this time the gap has gotten even wider. It was about 20,000 at the beginning of this mid. Now he's rounding about 30,000 plus, and it's still Serini and G-Bunny topping the charts there for the Knights, and Simsaloo and Ricotta at 1-9 and 4-8 respectively, searching for some impact.
Both tanks are 2-7 as well. One more assist for G-Bunny. Now going to start tacking up maybe a little bit more. They have a chance to fight back in here, but I mean, 30 seconds left. The worst games and worst performances we saw out of them yesterday against the Renegades were when there was pressure onto Zerini, onto G-Bunny to cause them trouble. The rest of the team just doesn't function without their front lines that well. So looking to keep them alive and maybe have them go big kind of trickles down for the rest of the team and allows Simsaloo to go big, allows Ricotta to go big. So look towards them to maybe be the pillars.
Well, Spacestation Gaming with a chance to make it 3. Overtime is going to start here. 5 ultimates ready to go for the Knights. Only 2, almost 3 for SSG. How much do you want to invest? That's the question. Who gets picked off for a shoulder bash in? G-Bunny with an important pick over Ares. Now it's down to Freeze God in the back line, but G-Bunny's diving one last time. Is the damage enough? Good stun for Mitau. But in the back line, the rest of Spacestation Gaming are falling as well. Sadak, the most recent to go down. Rashao as well. Nobody's in range to contest, and the Knights are going to roll this one in and tie up this game.
I think this is where aggression meets point tank, I guess just tankiness in general. SSG can, with this composition, especially with the con, with everything they have, kind of full-on push you away and kill you outright. That's what they've been doing. That's how they won the first round, was just by going through and stopping you from being able to accomplish anything. But even then, because of Luna, because of Zerini on Barrack, you have that ability to capture the point as the Knights, and that's the one thing they're lacking. SSG can't fight you objective to objective right now. They can fight you in a standard, essentially in a team deathmatch. If they're not worried about the objective, they win. But the fact that last round, not only with comeback mechanic, but also just around a payload that's moving, they are going to struggle if Zerini gets his way or if Cuss gets to put Luna down, much like he has right now, and they trickle up objective points while they zone out the tanks.
Well, that's a dome shield to start off this round. Simsaloo going toe-to-toe with Ares up on the high ground. Rashao, Cuss Cutie, both in the kill feed here. Rashao and G-Bunny also both in the death feed. Another double kill from Ares, looking for a little bit more around the corner, but Simsaloo grabs the kill. Sadak cleans up Zerini. Freeze God does the same to Simsy. Now back on the respawn is G-Bunny, but a team deathmatch now turned into objective control for SSG.
And I think very important to note, with Bulldozer there for Freeze God, he's kind of got to play double duty, which is the most awkward thing for the sniper to do. You need him poking out these tanks. You need him causing trouble for everyone on the Knights. But you also need him popping Luna off of the point. And so he has to kind of play both of those fields, make this shot that decision every single shot.
Yep.
And I think that's been causing some distress.
Ares on the big flank around the backside. Another double kill in this game. Mitau cleans up G-Bunny. Now overtime begins in favor of SSG. Only a couple squishy members of the Knights in range. Be gone for Cuss Cutie. Doesn't find much. Rashao gets the kill onto Simsy, and now Ares chasing away the healer of the Knights. Back onto the point go SSG, and +1 to their scoreboard.
And already aggressive. Already locking down Zerini. That shield's going to melt pretty fast. There he's sitting around here. Again, a phenomenal game coming down from him so far on this Leon. Which just keeps me in that wonder zone of why did you stop picking it for him when he does so well on 18-5 and 10. 10-1 and 15 there for Freeze God. His one streak was ended, but he's already burning on another one. Very, very solid play. Really good sidestepping from Simsaloo here. And I feel like that's the first time I've really gotten to say his name in a positive light this game. I mean, 5 and 12 is not the cleanest slash line.
No, it's absolutely not. And anyone on the Knights looking a little bit worse for wear right now. Overpower onto Cuss Cutie, gets it done the old-fashioned way, tosses him off the map. Ares adds his 20th kill of this game with an execute onto Ricotta. 10-6 and 15 for Rashao. 26 and 10 for the Leon. What a difference maker Ares has been, and giving them a chance to end this game on this push.
So an update on that damage gap, because it's 40,000 now, by the way, coming down from Freeze God. Very far ahead, much more than you'd like to see. I mean, in counterpart for Ricotta, now it's actually about 50,000 there that he's going to be kind of leading with a minute left in a good position. They've been able to burn his streaks down twice now. But you got to do something more. They're just not dying enough.
Yeah, single digit for everyone on Spacestation Gaming. Enlightenment for Ares to the left, but in the meantime, the payload rolling on forward. An SSG in convincing fashion, maybe not convincing fashion, but slash lines-wise, convincingly grab win number 1 of this set.
Honestly, the biggest thing I see there is just lack of focus from the Knights. I don't know what the plan was, but if you're not standing on the payload and you have no one standing on the payload, that's 2 times that game where SSG just kind of pushed it in, even though they have 2, maybe 3 members alive. You've got to kind of turn that focus. Maybe it's supposed to be where IO, like where are you throwing Luna? There's conversations to be had in that as to what's going on in the comms, but no one was there, and that's the only reason SSG are able to convert it in so smoothly twice.
And, you know, there's a lot to look at in that one, but I imagine the post-game stats on desk are going to really highlight the DPS discrepancy that we had in this game. Ares and Freeze God with maybe some of the best performances we've seen from SSG in the last couple of weeks in game number 1. They'll look to duplicate that performance in game 2 right after this.
INAP, powering the control room for the Paladins Premier League.
Welcome back, everybody. An explosive game 1 to be sure. Capture, convert, capture, convert, capture, convert. SSG stand tall, though, 4-2. You know, after that first round, right, you got to look at that as the Knights and say, oh, my goodness gracious, this is not looking good for us. This is a very aggressive team that is functioning extremely well. I mean, we talked about how sometimes as you know, Ruckus, you got to get in there and feed, but Sadak was 5-0 after the first round. There was no deaths at all.
Yeah, their pushes were perfect. Honestly, I mean, the way they were pushing from different angles. We saw some of the flanks they were trying to execute where Ares waited on Mount for
I loved that. That was
a
a great
long
play.
time.
Yeah.
He was just sitting there on Mount waiting for them to come in, came in from behind, got a bunch of kills at the end. You could even tell at one point we're on Zarini's POV and he was just flailing everywhere. Like, where's Sadak? Where's Ares? Is that Rashao? He just had no idea what was going on, and that chaos, I think, is where SSG thrive.
A Vietnam-style flashback there. Not even a ton of damage, but getting in there effectively. 20-6. Ares, sometimes kind of criticized on this team for his ability to compete and, you know, be of the caliber of some of the other legendary players on this SSG roster. But you got to give this guy a lot of credit. One of the few who's, you know, branched out to a new role this season, right? He's making a lot of strides to make himself a better player. And its performances on some of these more, you know, comfortable characters like Leon, where he really popped off. I mean, what a game from the man, Ares. I think this was the tail, oh no, this wasn't the tail end of that horseplay you mentioned when he was on Mount for a long time. The reason, this was it. This was getting in there. He's coming off the horse super late in this team fight. What I love about this so much is that it's not a, you know, brainless play, right? It's a risky thing to sit there for a long time on your Mount while your team's fighting and you're not getting in there. You're missing a lot of DPS uptime and otherwise valuable uptime, but he waited for the precise moment to strike. His team gave him the opportunity, teed him up, and he hit it out of the park.
And that's patience that I feel like it's part of what Ares has been lacking on this role. He went from off-tank to direct damage, so of course you're like, I have 5,000 health, and then you walk in and you melt, and you're like, oh, wait, no, I don't. And he never really was able to... There he is, training them in the ways. They'll all learn. One day.
Maybe someday they'll get the foot tab down. That's something I'm not even going to try here on the disc, but it's something I think
I'm flexible enough to do it, but I don't know if I want to curse everybody watching this. They will do it in the back and see
First
how it
time I
looks.
saw him, dude, I legitimately thought he just put his shoe on his hand and threw it up there. But
Ew.
I'm glad I had you to kind of.
I guess I can't be grossed out about that. I mean, you've done shoeies and.
Oh yeah, Aussie. Me and my boys Kang there, get into it. It's all fun that you can have too at the HRX after party if you find yourself there. Tickets available now and on sale for the best event of the year in Paladins and in the high-res sphere, guys. Let's head to the maps for game number 2. Orders Gate 422 SSG Jaguar Falls is going to be up next. What does this map have in store for us? It's any number of things. This is one of my favorite parts about this map. Is there is very little prohibitive map features where you can't do something, so everything is on the table. Makes the draft all that much more high stakes.
And I think that's why SSG like it, because they want to be able to flex all across the place, play a little bit of anything. But I think that's comfortable for Knights too. Get wherever they want. And SSG, interestingly, start with the first pick, Cassie. Maybe they think, I'm not sure if they know maybe something that the Knights might be doing here from Scrim experience, but I find that kind of interesting considering how well Ares just did on Leon.
Is that, when you see something like that, is that kind of what it tells you, right? There's something going on here. You got a gut feeling. Maybe it is, as a result of some Scrim information or something like that.
Or maybe just they think it's that good on this map versus Leon. Maybe just having that scout, not letting the team play those rotations is good enough to warrant first picking it. And I guess with Kanban, I mean, Ashe, Ruckus still on the table. This way now maybe they can flex between Ashe or Ruckus and they don't care which one they get. That could be why, now that they don't have the hardest counter.
Let's talk a little bit about the bans from last game as well and what that led to for FRZ. Now, hit scan is not normally his role for SSG, but it's absolutely something he can do.
Yeah.
And while the flank bans were heavy, FRZ did not find himself on the blaster last game. That's something SSG might be looking to build into, because we know Cassie's definitely something either Ares or Freeze can play, and it's one of the deadly things about this SSG roster is the ambiguity that the flexibility of their players allows them to have through the picking phase.
And I would definitely expect them to run at least some kind of blaster on this map. Really good. The chokes are small, so you can lock them down pretty easily, I would say. You could expect a BK. You could expect maybe even a Pip if they choose to go that way. Probably not now that they have the IO more than anything. But I mean, on the other side right now, the Knights are putting together a pretty good draft of their own. I mean, Barrack, Ashe, Maeve, Genos are some pretty tier list champions. Those are all characters that are going to do what they need to. Maeve maybe a little less mobile and flexible on this map because of the flatness. You can still go over some of the walls. But still.
Speaking of over walls, Eevee's being hovered here.
I thought you were going to say Ruckus. I'm like, you really think he's going to run aerial assault?
Maybe in a past life. Eevee not super popular on this map, but is known, especially amongst the best player of this character in the world, that if you're good enough, you can play her anywhere.
Yeah.
And obviously Freeze is among that caliber. How do you like the picks for Eevee on this map?
Giving it up into the Leon is my only question, because I feel like both those DPSs duel really well into Eevee. So he's going to have a rough time. If anything, maybe he'll just be harassing the tanks and trying to play low resources, so the IO can focus her heals with the Goddess Blessing on the Inara, on the Ruckus, making them even more monstrous to burn through. That's my guess. I think SSG tried to be a little cute. The start of it, I think, was interesting with the IO, the Inara, the Cassie, but I think the Knights ended up with a more flexible roster for the map in general. I think Barrack Ashe is just a super dominant tank combination.
I like what you brought up about being kind of resource independent on Eevee. It's one of the reasons I love the character, but it is a little questionable here. The Knights have drafted themselves a hell of a 5 character to get into it. Jaguar Falls up next for you guys. Game 2. Take it away.
Well, Leon swaps sides. She's over to the Knights this time around, and very, very impactful, and that's still somehow an understatement for SSG in Game 1. Looking to have the same impact and then some for the Knights here in Game 2 on Jaguar Falls. The question, though, Gore, is Eevee, in my opinion. I mean, she is, I think, a great champion. When you play her at the highest level, hard to deal with, but not a super common pick here on Jag Falls.
Yeah, that's the one that stands out maybe the most. I also think, as you had kind of highlighted her, Ricotta now on Leon could make a big difference. Did not have a clean game. Simsalou going on a Maeve. Admittedly, also someone who isn't here too often. So both of these flanks banned out, maybe more against the Knights last game, coming through here.
3, 2,
This wormhole Eevee Freeze God, it's big. It can cause a lot of trouble, and she can go up around. She kind of changes the dynamic of the map and can play against it well. And with the right mobility, Maeve can do the same. But it's just unique. It's different. It's not expected because there's not as much safety when you blink in. I mean, there's kind of 4 places to stand, and every single one of them's within firing range of the point.
And I think that the duel happening right here behind Statue is one to keep your eyes on. I thought that he got the kill on Freeze God somehow. Midtown and Simsy trading back and forth 1 for 1, but that's the healer down now for SSG. You're going to rely on the damage dealers to stay alive, but G-Bunny says no way to Freeze God out of the ice block and out of time. The respawn timer begins here, and Sadak back on the ruckus on Jag Falls. A good start for him here, as the percentage is relatively even, but it's the Knights who have the space control.
Just being able to set this up. Aya's in the neighborhood, which should start contesting things, and it already has. It might shift things over actually into control for SSG. But you need something big, and honestly, it feels like something big, potentially from Freeze God to come through, especially with Sadak getting cornered and burned down. It becomes maybe more crucial for Freeze God to have the biggest impact he can on these fights.
Things are starting to look a little bit more dire now for SSG. 3 members down, make it 4. This is definitely going to be point number 1 for the Knights. It just seemed like at the critical moments, they were losing one too many players on their team, whether it was Aries dying at the start, Midtown dying to follow that one up. They just didn't really have a full 5 stack going into that fight. And we've seen a good example of why Leon is pretty good into Eevee. I think Freeze God has had a tough time getting involved.
Yeah, it's honestly just so difficult already on this map, and it feels like that Leon was the perfect pickup, not only to get Ricotta on something comfortable, but also to thwart that Eevee every single step of the way. Right now, they're finally getting a little bit of a reprieve, but it doesn't feel like it's too much, right? They're not clapping back hard enough to convince me SSG has some control. The draft is wonky. I think it breaks apart with the Eevee, and so much is hinging on his performance that it becomes very shaky. It's unstable ground. There's thin ice that they're going to be standing on. And the same thing, I mean, you can see the impact on him, 1-3-1, 4-3-5. Simsalu's a little better in terms of it. Maeve, in my mind, on this map is a little better.
Wow, G-Bunny.
But you got to do something.
And G-Bunny's doing it right now at 7-0-4 on this Ashe. I mean, everyone, you could point out anyone on the Knights on Borders Gate and talk about how their slash line was a little rough looking. So this is a good bounce back, at least start for the Knights. And G-Bunny holding down this right-hand side, looking for Sadak, who's now back out of base. Ricotta providing some support from the back line, getting melted down is G-Bunny. Stays alive, not before Rochelle grabs the kill, but Simsalu on the mobility does the same to Spacestation Gaming. 50 seconds left, Dome Shield down as well. And the fight is here, has begun. Go searching for someone to connect onto.
Unfortunately, doesn't seem to have hit anybody. Flies straight through the battlefield here off the edge of the map. A couple of good shots from Aries with the Ice Storm. Will connect and get rid of Zarini. And with 30 seconds left, that might buy you a defense. It still seems, especially with G-Bunny in the neighborhood, like they will, on the Knights, be able to touch for overtime. But you at least buy yourself some time to figure this out and try to collect on where you go next if you're SSG.
They use the Dome Shield, so they won't have that for the next mid, depending on how long this one goes on, but it would have to go on for like 2 minutes. Midnight for the Knights. They want to fight right now. Simsalu diving back, but gets plugged out of the air by Aries. He's able to drop down, get some of that passive healing. Zarini back behind his shield as well. Ricotta looking for some plug shots. Has the Enlightenment if he needs to confirm or save his own life. Overtime on. Nobody's dying off just yet. Both teams playing kind of passively. Good seismic crash down from Rochelle. Locks up Zarini. Doesn't grab the kill, though. Now Simsalu looking to confirm a couple of daggers. Finally, kills start to fall with the first one for Simsy.
Couple of good shots here. Should be able to open this up. Overtime, it's going to snap back, but with Zarini still standing strong. Rochelle incredibly low. This is looking like a Knights fight. It depends on this side fight.
And that's all you
wow.
need.
Okay.
3 straight kills for Simsy to push that one on through. And the Knights, a much better look at the start of Jag Falls here. And I think that this one kind of born out of the draft.
Born out of the draft, born out of G-Bunny as well. A lot of aggression from this guy, and it worked out so well for them. I mean, there's a lot of these I'm seeing right now. No one's looking at him, one, so it's free damage. And then on top of that, I mean, he comes down 7 killing blows, 5 assists, only 2 deaths and all of that. No one was paying attention to him. And, you know, I had highlighted earlier, I think it was 1-3 for Freeze God, 4-3 at the time for Simsaloo. And you can see who's been kind of winning in that trade. 10-3-7 between for Simsaloo here. And between him and G-Bunny, again, it's the same quote I said against SSG, but now it's against the Knights. They're not dying enough, which to me screams that SSG are having trouble, 1, prioritizing, and 2, well, right now I would say making this EV work.
Certain dominance down into the back line for G-Bunny, knocked back out. Hiding back around the corner right now. 4 members of SSG hiding back behind this wall. That's going to open things up for the Knights, allow them to move forward a little bit. Cutie getting killed is a bit of a break for SSG, but the Knights still in control of this point. One more shot is all Ares needs. Can't connect. G-Bunny stays alive. Finally, Freeze hits the final shot, and G-Bunny has been a torment for Spacestation this game, and it looks like they finally bought themselves some space.
And if they can get aggressive here and find Zarini, that's going to open this up. With comeback mechanic, this kill could very much be the thing that determines the point. And they will be able to get it. Rachel Freeze God on the side, going to be able to double down, and that should be a capture.
They're going to move forward with Luna. Capture the point, add a 1 to their board, a chance to tie up this game now for them. A great look, a different look for Spacestation Gaming this time around. They were able to kind of kite backwards, prevent too much of an offensive onslaught from the Knights, and then turn around to kill on the Cutie, and everything sort of domino fell out from there. And fast cap, of course, always helps.
It's very similar to the feeling when Knights got their point last map. I almost said yesterday, but last map wasn't that long ago as it comes through. That is one that it feels almost gifted to you. It was very impressive that they were able to convert it into a push. I'm not quite feeling the same way about SSG here. Again, it depends much more heavily on Freeze God, maybe even on Ares here to break the base, but they're already at 1 choke point, which is this little kind of gate that opens up. The next one would be under the catwalk as they walk into the base. And there's just too many kills that you have to get in order to break through that I don't know that they have the full potential to get them all.
I mean, look at that. They lose G-Bunny, or they lose Zarini, rather. But G-Bunny is delayed enough now that Zarini is going to be able to get back into the fight. These frontliners have stayed alive just long enough to delay. Although Spacestation Gaming do finally break through that first choke, and the Knights lose a couple members on the back end of that engagement. Now they're trapped in the back of their base. How much can SSG get out of this space control? It's now the question I think this push hinges on.
I'm waiting for this Eevee to do something that makes me feel like it's justified. I feel like there's other flanks you could play here that would work well. And, well, that's not going to be it. Simsaloo, now kind of off the leash, is allowed to do whatever he wants for the next, well, let's give him like 20 more seconds, I guess, until Freeze God's fully back into this. That's going to make it much more difficult for SSG.
And Rakata's feeling comfortable here. Zarini as well. Nice and cozy beneath the dome shield. Zarini a big double kill there. Ares lifted up into the sky by the Void Grip. They're just going to stagger him out. 25 seconds left. Trying to reset his cooldown, his own cooldown, just a little bit quicker. But Zarini's going to finish off that kill as well. And, you know, as discrepant as the kind of front lines were in the last game, now the Knights are just really controlling that front space. Zarini, I think, is having a big comeback game if you consider his previous game on Waters Gate.
Yeah, definitely a rough start for the Knights in this set. Altogether, Zarini going to get taken down here. And since he used that dome shield earlier, they honestly, as great as it is to have Barrick just because of how sustainable he is on his own, they don't need him to finish this out. A through time and space, well placed, could absolutely end the round. Somebody needs to stop this from moving forward.
I think it's just going to roll right on in. Rashao gets lifted up into the air. Zarini back in off of respawn, but once he goes down, payload goes in. Now we're tied up at 2, so as you know, great of a start as it's been for the Knights. Spacestation are able to grab a couple points of their own. Granted, this is what we saw in Waters Gate as well, where the Knights were able to fight back in a little bit, get themselves kind of a one-off push. Slash line's not quite as horrible as they were for the Knights on Waters Gate for SSG. They're very much in this game.
And from, what, 10-3 to 11-5 for Simsalou. That's where my eyes really kind of go down. Still top damage, still doing a lot in terms of killing, but less impactful that round. The same thing for Zarini, and they're coming into this with only 3 of their ults. Dome Shield was used kind of early in that round. It definitely helped and did assist in the stop to be able to find it. And Cuss goes for a shot and finds it.
Onto FreezeGod especially. That's a lot of mobility that Spacestation Gaming are going to be missing out on. They do have kind of the ultimate advantage to retake here, but the Knights are using theirs first. They're getting the kills first as well. This is going to be a great start to this round for the Knights. Simsalou with a double. Rashao, the last man standing, just trying to prevent some point capture. Grabs a kill as well. So he's going to stagger Ricotta for 5 or so seconds. But they swung first. Tale as old as time. Now Spacestation Gaming are looking to retake with some ults of their own.
Midnight's still available. It's the only thing up right now for the Knights. They're going to go ahead and throw that one out there. The Midnights, I like that one, as it comes through. And it's enough to shut down FreezeGod and potentially keep them zoned away here. 96% is a big lead for the Knights. Even if they lose this fight on equal footing, they should be able to come back in and touch one more time.
That's a brilliant stun from Rashao. Grabs a couple there as the Knights now staggered out themselves, pulled back, Be Gone, the only ultimate immediately ready in this game. And this is the power of Lunagore. They're able to 5-man zone out in front and try to prevent the Knights from moving forward.
Still only going to hit, I would wager, high 80s, low 90s here for their percentage. 93 is going to touch down. Zarini's not even going to be able to see the point.
Wow, the body blocks, the slight knockback, and the shots from Ares ring true at the perfect time. The Knights may be able to get some kills here, but actually it's SSG who are somewhat winning the fight after the fight. A double kill for FreezeGod, who finally is able to participate. Sniped out and then immediately killed on the retake attempt. He's 8-7-12. And I think, honestly, if I look at the damage charts, Ares was like low middle kind of halfway through this game, and kind of seeing his rise now to the top, I think is why SSG have had a better time.
That, absolutely. I mean, so far what we're seeing is a good consistency out of SSG. Not anywhere near as a landslide in terms of slash lines that they had during the last map. But we are also seeing one distinct feature, I think, that's kind of missing for the Knights. I mean, Zarini, big turnaround. Cuss, admittedly, pretty big turnaround for him. Simsalou, G-Bunny, all picking up the slack that was missing. And until those last couple kills, Ricotta was 3-10 after that point capture. And that's kind of where things are missing. I mean, if he's having a bad game, if he's under control from SSG, they're just missing a significant chunk of damage. And third in slot is not terrible for Leon.
Right.
But normally the conversation is supposed to be Leon, Cassie as 1 and 2. Maeve shouldn't be as far up there. So credit to Simsalou for playing as well as he is. But that means we need to see more out of Ricotta to me. And so far, it's just not been quite as a hit as he has been in the last few weeks. Maybe trying to shake off some rust.
Sure.
Shake off a little bit of maybe grogginess coming into today. Whatever he needs to do. These first 2 games aren't as representative of his level of play as his normal level is.
And there's a lot of haven as well for Spacestation Gaming items-wise, so that may lend itself to some lower damage numbers for the Knights. Sadak and FreezeGod find a couple of kills here, and that was a Hexafire confirmed. He's going to try to get out, get some of that Luna healing, or that Io healing, rather. Payload continuing to move forward. Could be the 4th and final point for Spacestation Gaming to go up 2-0 in this set. Ares with Scout, the only ultimate readily available. Midnight drops down from the Knights. This is where they'll look to push that advantage. Simsalou dashes in, hits a couple of daggers. Not able to confirm any kills. FreezeGod does that for the first time. Zarini grabs one onto Ares. But Rashao with another one onto G-Bunny. That's a big mitigation of frontline damage. Through time and space does not connect, and neither does Be Gone. If you're able to get Zarini, this game may just be over. And they do that. Now it's Cuss Cutie trying to defend. Simsalou throws himself onto the pile, and he just delays for another moment.
Doing whatever they can. A couple more shots is all they need. FreezeGod's coming up big.
And that's a double kill from that Eevee. Ice Storm goes down. Nobody in range, and Space Station Gaming get win number 2. And a comeback victory on Jaguar Falls.
Pretty much everything that they needed to go right there was going right. I mean, they would have preferred, I think, Be Gone to hit and then just end the game off of that. But being able to find the kills, Freeze God all of a sudden kind of scooping things up, and also good positioning, kind of forcing the Knights to play uncomfortably. Simsalou maybe getting a little too aggressive against them. Ends up in this awkward spot where, yes, they got a kill onto Ares. They cause a lot of trouble and maybe distress for SSG in the backline, but everyone else stays alive. Rachao has no trouble with his health bar. It drops, and then Mitad just brings him right back to full.
And they got the win.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Eevee after one game of data on Jag Falls?
Still not sold on it. I'll be honest. It looked good at the end of the game, but I think there's maybe a good reason we only see her here every now and then.
Well, Spacestation Gaming will be happy with the performance. They at least get a win in the column for Eevee on Jag Falls. Now up 2-0 over the Knights with Game 3 right around the corner.
SteelSeries, the official peripheral provider of the Paladins Premier League.
Just us, said we wouldn't be like all the others, fight and hurt each other. Not us, not us. But we let each other down, 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 down. Yeah, we let each other down, 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 down. But we let each other down, 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 down. Yeah, we let each other down, 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 down. This shouldn't be us. Why can't it be us when we call them? We weren't supposed to break up. Literally to make up to what my heart meant. No, this should not be us, not be us, not be us. This should not be us, not be us, not be
Welcome back, folks. SSG managed to grab another one there on Jaguar Falls. And Kresnik, again, it's this bursty, explosive action between these two teams. Caps and conversions just non-stop. Now, is it the drafts that are leading towards this? Is it just the play style of these teams? Or are they good enough? Sometimes I think, like, teams that are good enough can really see far into the future when there's an opportunity to, like, get a good conversion fight or something and know when to go for the throat.
Yeah, it's tough to know, right? It's so tough to tell, like, is this ultimate going to work here? Because you don't know how they're going to react, really, how willing they are to spend. But I don't know. The draft that they have, I think the aggression from the Ruckus might have opened up a lot of things for them. Getting that Cassie early did kind of take that off the table, and the Knights had an amazing start to the game. But as they went on and when they were able to...
did they ever.
It was great. I think SSG also kind of misplayed by throwing themselves into Sun and letting themselves get totally surrounded and collapsed on. But as the fights went on, they played a little bit harder into the sustain. I think that the Io and Nara brought them, and the fact that Freeze could just do it kind of whatever he wanted on the sides, too.
That's a big part of it, right? We talked about how Freeze just didn't need those resources to look after. Damba and Nara is a classic combination we got to highlight yesterday during the Envy SSG set, but I mean, look at this. The Io and Nara combination is also looking like a really viable pocket strat where, again, highlighting the strengths of Inara. I really like the element of you have Earth and Guard to give that kind of healing amp period burn, but then Io provides damage reduction outside of Earth and Guard as well. So, and Inara can kind of be Inara and play with strength even when her, innate cooldowns are not up. It's a really kind of nice combination. I also wanted to get your thoughts on kind of how you thought the Eevee kind of played out in this one. Obviously a pretty damn good slash line, but did it sort of have that effect that you hoped it would?
I think so. I think just being able to constantly harass. And again, I really noticed he didn't match up against the DPSs too much, I felt. The kills on the DPSs were more in like late game situations like this where they had to go in, but he starts by focusing tanks and supports, and that makes sense. He doesn't have favorable matchups on the other side of the game, but being able to just do the constant 850 consistently, and also backing up off the damage that Rachao was doing, honestly.
Look at this HP bar.
So
Look at this freaking HP bar, dude.
It can't go down, no matter what they do.
Outside of Earth and Guard, it looks like an Earth and Guard HP bar. It's just wiggling right around 1900 2K. People are shooting at him, but it just doesn't matter. He just won't go down. Rachao so tanky and feeling like he's realizing that he has that strength. Knowing how to play with the brand new support behind him is a great thing, and that's so much of what a frontliner is knowing what you can accomplish with what you've got behind you.
It's about making the most out of the resources that you're given, or trying to make more with less. You know, as an off tank, you're not necessarily going to get pocketed so much. How far can you go in? How much room can you make without your support having to just dead stare at you the entire time and let the rest of your team die?
Yeah.
That kind of is what it comes down to. I think that the sustain that SSG brought also kind of hurt Simsy a little bit. I noticed yesterday in the games that Simsy played against Renegades, I felt like he was getting in and out all the time. No Io was played on the other side. On Simsy's Mave, he was constantly able to find a kill mid-fight. He was getting a lot of damage, but the kills weren't really coming in for him, I feel.
Yeah, that's tough, man. Some of these situations, it can be really tough to, finish off these kills and get out alive. Those are the trades that make the most memorable moments, right? When you can get out scot-free. One final thing I kind of wanted to mention about that Eevee on the Jag Falls is that I like what you brought up about the matchups, right? It's not always the best, it's not always the best matchup for you, and Freeze needs to recognize that it's not always about him. Not every composition is designed around, the star player to be the most successful. And right up until he got that triple or 4 kill at the end, he was 10-8, right? It's not this crazy performance, right?
Yeah.
But he's doing what he needed to do, just kind of staying alive and contributing and allowing the composition that was sort of built without him in mind to be successful around him. Now, go ahead.
Yeah, to succeed without resources, I think, is key. And it's also kind of why Buck is coming back, too. So some of these teams that maybe have players that'll get a little bit more pressured in that role, you could just put them on Buck and clap your hands.
Yeah.
Cha-cha slide, hope you can get away.
It's really what the viable flanker needs to have. Mave, Eevee, Buck, they've all got it. They've all got the damage reduction, immunity of some form, sustain out the wazoo, and they're able to be successful for it and easy to pick because of it. Now, bans for this game here on Ice Mines. Remember, Ice Mines is becoming pretty core to these best of 7 sets, and I'm kind of here for it. We're learning a lot about this map. And it's becoming a lot more fun to watch because the players are so much better at it. Of course, in this matchup, man, I'm looking out for that Terminus at this point, man. I'm just waiting, wondering when it's going to come, if it's going to come. SSG used it yesterday. The Knights obviously got to see that and recognize that it's probably a threat. It's in the arsenal. But with both front lines already locked in for SSG, will they go for it?
I don't think they will for Triple Tank. The Knights might, though. I know Zarini, definitely very, very comfortable on the Terminus. Actually, funny little aside, when I was walking back away from the cast after Renegades played Terminus yesterday, Zarini was coming out of the bathroom and he went, he doesn't know how to play Terminus. He just immediately confided in me, you're the other Terminus. I need to tell you about this.
It's funny, man. That's how it gets, when these guys get their niche, to their name, iconic sort of champions. And right now, Zarini is that. He's the Terminus player in the PPL. And this is one of the maps, if not the premier map, to pick Terminus on. And with SSG already locking in both of their front lines, the Knights with none of their front line, it's looking likely. And I like that strategy, right? Because if Terminus becomes a powerful, viable pick for you, nobody else is doing that. You pick it last, and it doesn't matter. You get the tier 1 picks of everything else, and you still get to scoop a power pick late in the draft because nobody else is doing it. You're reaping that reward.
And it's a character you really have to practice. You have to make the most out of his Siphon, because if you don't, he's really just going to die. He's so squishy as a tank. Outside of that, doesn't have those bursts of sustain if you don't manage your Siphon properly. That's why practicing him is really important. And I have a feeling these two supports are going to be pretty much the only two we see on Ice Mines for a while.
Ying Genos?
Because of the dismount. It's actually so key. I know we talked to them about it yesterday. We talked to the Knights about their super aggressive Xin play on Ice Mines yesterday, and that was it. The other team had a Damba. They're not going to stop him. They just mount through. Damba's not going to hit those snake spits through the gates. That small little change to fix that bug where the Amani Dragon was going through the gates almost flipped the support meta of Ice Mines on its head. Crazy, the effects, those tiny little changes. Yeah.
That's where I think Paladins is such a fun game to watch. These tiny little details that can have these rippling effects that really change the course of certain maps, specifically here on Ice Mines. Rockfather has been locked in Terminus for Zarini, the man on screen. G-Bunny there to back him up on Ruckus.
If you know which direction
I'm glad they did it because it kind of, you know, we get to now look upon what we've been talking about and see if the Knights can reap those rewards. SSG played it yesterday, so hopefully they have some insight into as to the ins and outs, how to defeat this character, where it's weak. But again, Zarini doesn't think it was played to the utmost.
Well, that was
of its
the
ability.
Renegades game.
Oh, okay.
Because he was going to the bathroom mid-set, and while going back to the booth to play again, he had to stop to
Had to
tell
let
me.
him know.
He had to do it to him. I like the EV pick last. It is questionable in Ice Mine sometimes, but I think it's specific for the Term. I think that's what it is. To turn him around. Term can only focus on one direction with that Siphon. If you're blinking over him, he doesn't really have a response.
Watch the dismounts of the supports through the long tunnel by the point. Watch the EV blinking over the Terminus. The key factors here identify. Let's get it down and see what the players can do.
Well, if SSG are able to win this one, I don't know, Gord. Knights are going to have a hard time climbing back. Ice Mines is a map that the Knights have kind of formed their own little meta on in the form of Zarini on the Terminus, and we're going to get another look of that this time around. Kresnik, though, and I agree with him, there's a little bit of counterplay with the EV for Freeze God.
And being able to come through, again, a map where Eevee isn't your go-to. She's not the one that you immediately think of. But if he's already warmed up on her, and in that mindset, that makes it, I think, especially dangerous. Something that's going to maybe have to keep Zarini on a swivel in order to either absorb her shots or deal with her. Everything else on their draft fits pretty much right in the standard that you would expect for Ice Mines. So that's the one that's going to have to throw him for a loop.
A couple of dismounts. That's going to put Rochelle on the point first. Climbing up to 21%. You have Ares on the Victor, hiding high up inside that window back there, right where you expect to find him throughout most of these mid-fights. Big Shatterfall down from Zarini. Sets up a kill for Simsalou and Rochelle. First blood in this one, and as punishing as Ice Mines is, losing your point tank might be all the enemy team needs to capture.
I do not like that. They fumigated that hallway with the way I saw SSG running away. Like there was just nothing left. No essence of SSG left in this fight. Mitau incredibly low. That should be a kill for Simsalou as well. And that's the big thing. Willow coming down to this, the biggest contest she's going to have is potentially Freeze God, but I think more so what Ares can do to maybe stop her. We saw a couple of snags, I believe, for the Knights yesterday, a little bit for Envy as well on Ice Mines. And it's just, if you can find them, if you get the right moment, Ares is going to be probably the strength of SSG. But they're going to have to do more, I think, to make sure that this Willow stays under wraps.
In the most standard Ice Mines fashion, the Knights are able to win the mid-fight after just killing Sadak and Rochelle. Then SSG, now back from the respawns, are able to kind of win the re-engagement, so the defense starting off well for the red team. As Ricotta dodge rolls away. Freeze God hits another good shot. And this is where things maybe start to stall out. But Freeze God, I mean, we kind of questioned the EV on Jag Falls, and, you know, it's not the most standard map here on Ice Mines, but at 403, you know, he's one of the best in the world.
He's doing kind of exactly what you would want out of it at this point. It's a very good performance, a map where, she's not going to be the most obvious and prominent pick, but she's making sure her voice is heard. And honestly, at this point, Freeze God has been essential to this defense. And just, if you're an SSG fan, you kind of wish you could have seen it a little earlier. I mean, this last minute and a half have been stellar coming down. It's where a lot of these kills have been coming from. This payload is still sitting on that center objective, is how good SSG have been able to hold this. But it's just so weird to see it happen a little late compared to the mid-fight.
I'm trying to think of what's like the longest Ice Mines cap I've seen, because, you know, there is kind of a line where you're like, well, you know, overtime can move somewhat quickly on these types of maps. But, you know, like 30 seconds left and the payload has not moved at all. I don't know if I've really ever seen that one go in, especially with Ares trading out on a Simsalou. They are going to at least get some progress, but they're going to have effectively an entire overtime to try to move the entire map.
I was thinking that was going to be a really big loop around for Ares, and it ended up being a huge loop around. but not the flank that I thought we were going to get. I thought he was going to come down, get a couple shots, have Barrage come up, drop it, and just this amazing flank. And he just kind of ran back to his team. Like he just had to take a different route to get home. But it is going to be overtime. It's going to be about 65% that they have to push throughout all of this. And that, like, I mean, just to comment on what you were saying, is exactly the same line I thought I've had. There's some lengthy overtimes I've seen. I know I've seen some on Ice Mines, but I don't know if I've ever seen the Knights, or any team really, go from that much of a deficit in the push to successful conversion.
Well, they're moving forward here, but they've lost some team members along the way, and that's going to spell the end to the push for the Knights. So they delay enough time. The payload didn't really start moving until there were about 30 seconds left. They did make some good progress. If some of those kind of intermediate kills are up for the Knights instead of for SSG, that's a realistic push.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a map where if you kind of get one, you know, maybe 1.5 fights, you give yourself a chance in overtime. Tie-breaking mid-fight awaits on the horizon. First one we're going to see with some meaningful ultimates. Space Station Gaming a little bit better off with that Faith Flight being down. Dome Shield effectively up as well. And the reanimate, that's a big question that, you know, when do you use it? What's the proper time? And Sereni's going to hopefully tell us the answer.
Honestly, I don't know there's a right answer, honestly. With the way reanimate works, there is a great time to use it, but it never feels like that time is the right time when you're in that position. And so even Zerini, like even if he hits a phenomenal ult and he maybe kills 3 people, he'll always be wondering, what if I could have gotten a 4th? Like what if it could have gone bigger? But as of right now, he doesn't have to worry about any of that.
Gets the first kill the old-fashioned way, and through time and space does not connect for SSG. They had slightly better ultimates, but slightly more available ultimates, but don't grab much out of it. Dome Shield expires for Rashao here. Sadat grabs the only kill for SSG on this mid. It's the same tail as the first one. There is a chance for SSG. They have the team members, and only the Barrage, though, to retake. Sadak actually turns around and grabs a kill. The Barrage from Ares grabs a double.
Being able to at least get them back into this slightly. You're going to have to displace 2 tanks, though, and one of them has used his reanimate, so he's not going to have that second life, which does create some conundrums for the Knights to face here. But I want to roll back just a few seconds to look at Cuss ignoring Ashe in one of these fights. I think Illusory Rift was up, which makes it a little easier, but the fact that he was just in this hallway just like, yeah, you don't matter to me, means that Sadak needs to up that performance.
Yep. Yeah, he'll look to do that here. Faith Flight, the closest to being ready, could be a difference maker for Simsaloo. The Knights at 66%, 78 for Space Station Gaming. Aggressive push here from G-Bunny. Void Gripped up into the air, getting melted down, just needs a couple more shots. Rashao's trying to confirm it, but he's able to dash out. Such good healing. And the power siphon as well blocks a lot of shots. Ares grabs the kill onto Rakata. In the meantime, 87% in climbing for Space Station Gaming. Rashao finally dies. G-Bunny does as well. And now Ares on the flank, looking to keep his team in.
That was the most unfortunate reload time. That would have been a kill onto Cuss otherwise. Wow. Ares having to reload gives this over to the Knights without being able to find that kill onto the Ying.
Yeah, and that is a tough way to kind of turn this one around. You're going to have the overtime reset, but Mitau dies. I think that kind of loses a lot of the chance that your team maybe had. G-Bunny adds the final kill of this mid-fight. And this is a difference, though. Remember, SSG kind of won the fight right after the mid got captured. Yeah. The Knights now are winning the fight, and they're getting this payload moving with much more time to spare.
And it is just so unfortunate. I don't know if it changes too much if Ares is able to get rid of Ying there. I think there's not anything he could really do to make those 3 bullets show up in his clip other than maybe reload slightly earlier in the fight. But, I mean, that was the perfect sequence of shots from him until he had to reload and Cuss walks away with that 1 shot of health. And then he's full healed up, the team's full healed up. Knights kind of get reinvigorated, I would say, from having their support kind of breathe life back into them. And now 75% and rising incredibly fast for Ying there on that Illusory Rift. Even with a good defense right here and a nice little stagger on the Cuss. They make 60% in a minute.
It's going to be a hefty stagger as well. The rest of the Knights moving forward. Payload where it kind of stopped in the last round, but with an extra minute and 20 seconds on the clock for the Knights. Spacestation Gaming much better off ultimate economy-wise. The Knights were not able to fully break through on the offensive push. With a minute left, now's the time where you start to question what you use if you're SSG.
What else are good? What do you not want to use? I mean, Ice Storm's coming up. Through Time and Space is always one of those ones I think it's nice to throw out there. And, well, apparently Mitau agrees. Not going to be able to find a kill with it. I was going to throw on the caveat that it is also incredibly good around the mid-fight since you know where they have to walk. But with 40 seconds left, he's already at 12%. He's not going to full charge it this round unless overtime lasts a good chunk of time. But it should get back to a reasonable standard where he can at least use it for the next mid before someone caps.
I think Aries had a great flank there, went all the way around the Knights. Did end up getting traded out, but that made a couple members turn around and kind of focus on this Victor. 20 seconds left. Call it 55.6% of the way there for the Pittsburgh Knights. Aries grabs a kill onto Simpsy. Zerini just contesting, reanimate, ready. Going to let it expire. Now is not the right time. 2 seconds left. Overtime is on here for the Knights.
I think that call for Zerini either means they are very certain they can keep it in overtime for him to get here, or that they are not certain they're going to push this at all. And with G-Bunny going down there, it seems like it was the latter. They anticipated not converting that and decided it wasn't worth investing anything to try and keep it going. And so I think a good call from Zerini to hold on to that one and have it again. It's a six-man fight, essentially, for the Knights around the mid.
And, you know, Simsalou quite vocally, I think, has a bad taste in his mouth, even when winning on this Willow. Damn if he doesn't make this champion look good. I mean, she is in a great spot, and he is great at playing her. And, you know, big difference maker here in this one, help confirm a lot of these midpoints.
10, 7, and 12. Number 2 damage, just 1,000, barely, 900 behind Aries. And so that's going to be big. That's one of the few things Victor has almost always had, is if he's in a game, he can usually find top damage, as we learn from seeing him so much in the console league. But right here, this barrage is going to have to go huge. Does get rid of G-Bunny, and that's a good start.
It's a big frontline advantage now for Spacestation Gaming. Where do the rest of the kills go? As Simsalou flies his way on in. Zerini as well, now going toe-to-toe with Sadak, who has the assert dominance if he wants to use it. And then as well, Rashao trying to kill off Cuss Cutie, and that 1v1 on the backside is a win for Spacestation Gaming. G-Bunny now trying to re-engage. Zerini very low on this Terminus power safe and saving his life. He does. That is the lowest amount of health I've maybe ever seen. Sadak saves the kill. And reanimate now used by Zerini to keep them even.
And that's huge from Sadak. Making sure to get that kill, force the reanimate, is going to force Zerini back not only out into the fight, but it also means he doesn't have that to rely on. If he had been able to stay alive there and get healed back up, they'd still have to burn through Terminus twice. Now, it's a little bit easier of a kill. It's such a slow charging ult. There's almost no way he gets that back before the end of the round.
Through Time and Space does connect onto G-Bunny. Aries follows up with some damage of his own. Illusory Rift for Cuss Cutie used. But the Pittsburgh Knights absolutely melting under the offense of Spacestation Gaming, and they're already at 78%. There's no world where the Knights are able to get back in and grab a touch on this one. And for the first time on Ice Mines, SSG are going to be on the offense.
And the best time for them. The first time to get on the offense, but also able to convert this, find themselves a win, put themselves up 3-0 in the set.
That's right.
1 win away from winning this. And honestly, for following statistics, a 3-0 here for SSG tends to lean towards no chance for the Knights. They might be able to put it to 7, but we have not seen a team complete a full reverse sweep in the league this year.
Close.
We've gotten, we've had 3 wins in a row.
Was it
from
SSG?
a 3-1. I think SSG and Na'Vi have both done it, but neither have been able to find 4 straight wins after 3 straight losses.
I'm trying to remember, was it SSG? They were down 3-0, they won 3 straight, and then lost in Game 7. I can't remember who they were playing against.
That sounds about right.
But it was the closest we've ever been, maybe, to a complete reverse sweep, but didn't work out. They're on the other side of the coin this time around, knocking on the door of going up 3-0 against the Pittsburgh Knights. Honestly, I'm not sure I would have expected that. I mean, this game is not over just yet, but I was expecting a much closer kind of tit-for-tat back-and-forth series.
Absolutely. And honestly, I was kind of surprised. I even told you this, but after Jag Falls, I thought Jag Falls was map 3. I know there was only 2 maps, but it just felt it had a map 3 air about it. I just assumed because it was so close that yes, SSG were up 2, but it was 2-1, not 2-0, and they're still up 2-0, and there's still a chance to make it 2-1, especially with Simsaloo finding a kill onto Ares there. They're at least gonna slow this one down, but charging ults up, 45 seconds left on the clock. Spacestation, plenty of chance to not only get in here, but also still win a fight. They're gonna start dropping ults for it.
Yeah, they throw down the Ice Storm and the through time and space, find nothing. Dome Shield as well is now spent by Rochelle, way far back from this payload. And they're not really even winning the fight convincingly with Zarini being able to trade out. Finally, they're gonna grab some kills and go back. Smartly, I think. Sadak now shoulder bashes his way through. It's not going to be a backdoor. You're going to have the respawns from G-Bunny, but if he's able to win this engagement, things become a lot more difficult. Hexafire right into the shield. Assert dominance ready for Sadak, but he shoulder bashes his way out. If nothing else, he got the overtime timer started. Rashao did grab a double kill in the meantime on the back line, and what a play there from Sadak to keep this moving forward.
I mean, they got to keep it in overtime, and they have to recognize now assert dominance is going to be immensely valuable. The same thing for the barrage. If you're going to use them, you either use them now, get yourself a win. They're still pushing it forward, but that timer is just a trickle away from going over in favor of the Knights.
Oh, Ares has some great targets, makes good on it. Big double kill from the victor here. Simsaloo up into the Fae Flight, and it's maybe the last-ditch effort here. Freeze God flies his way in. Overtime, looking like it expired there. I can only imagine that Zarini got melted down and SSG were able to grab the win. But 3-0 up. An unfortunate technical issue right at the end, but SSG do confirm the final point. Zarini got melted down, and SSG go up 3.
That being said, if you take that freeze frame, it is a perfect example of why they were able to win. You've got Eevee, who just touched for overtime. I think Sadak was right there. Sadak or Richao right next to the payload, and a almost dead Zarini right there. There's not much you can do in that scenario. You're surrounded by 2, I think 3, with Ares kind of still in the rafters. And so good control from them to be able to push that one in. Very, very solid. Again, the first 2 rounds going pretty heavily in terms of mid-fight towards the Knights. So good to fight back there. And on that aggression, I was on the fence about them using their ults, but they made it work out.
I know. I'm thinking Dome Shield is way up here.
Dome Shield was
30
in the
seconds
mid-fight,
left,
essentially.
Apparently it works, and then Sadak, I think a great play to get himself in. Wasn't really like a backdoor, but just give themselves a chance. If that payload is not that much further forward, maybe it becomes a little bit more difficult. And Freeze God as well, continuing to show us that Eevee can kind of work wherever.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the...
there's an asterisk, but...
if you're Freeze God is the asterisk. It will work anywhere as long as he's playing her. He's done really well on Jag Falls, really well on Ice Mines with her. So I'm kind of curious to see if they want to keep going for the Eevee, or if maybe she's going to get thrown to the side as they go to a different draft for a different map.
Well, I didn't expect a 3-0 to start off this Friday, but that's what we got. See if SSG can complete the 4-0 right after this break.
Alienware, the official PC provider of the Paladins Premier League.
Welcome back, everybody. Close end to Ice Mines there, but again, such a back-and-forth game. Every single game this set so far has been explosive either way. The Knights and SSG go at it, but SSG managed to stand tall. And whether it's SSG starting out strong or the Knights starting out strong, SSG are finding a way to kind of adapt and evolve these team fights later on into the game to make sure that it ends up in a W.
And it's all about, I don't even think it's a pure mechanical thing at this point. I think these teams are pretty evenly matched when it comes to that.
Yeah.
It's coming down to a lot of good team play. Two
Oh,
good
yeah.
combos of ultimates. I know even you in the back, leaned back in your chair when you saw that Ice Storm through time and space onto Bunny when he was pushing. You're just like, that's just good Paladins.
It just is, man. The angles they're finding, the way... Frankly, I thought Ares salvaged a lot of these team fights. I think he's
Yes.
playing extremely well today. He's a tough character to play in the Premier League. I give anybody that does it a lot of credit because you got to, again, have that foresight, know when it's time to go in and when it's time to get out and what angles am I looking to play. Ares a big part of, he had some double barrages, right? Setting up these ice storms with the time and spaces freeze and mid-tower working very, very nicely together. I just loved it, man. I think they're all playing very well.
And you could see just how they made the draft work, too, constantly pressuring Zarini on the turn. And I thought Knights weren't even playing their draft really badly. Zarini was doing a great job peeling for people, keeping the team alive. Yeah. A few questionable Fae flights, I think, from Simsi at interesting times where he wasn't able to get as much as he could have, maybe. But all in all, good Paladins from both sides. But SSG, I mean, look at Ares, 23-10. Monstrous play by him. For sure, across the board. I mean, he's saving plenty of fights with that many kills.
And what's crazy is that it's it's not for a lack of pressure from the Knights because they had some nasty-looking team fights too, where they were getting into the back. We were laughing. I'm like, how is Cuss in this back? Cuss is in the back window with the boys, right? Keeping them, shoulder to shoulder, healing them up, throwing out the lens shots as well. The Knights were really getting in there and mixing it up with SSG. So for Ares to kind of have that type of performance in an area where they're getting a lot of pressure. And we had a kind of a little stutter at the end with Spectre, so we are going to watch that last team fight back again from Ice Mines. SSG able to close this one perfect. I love this angle. This is what I want to talk about. Look at these little windows. He's peeking out here, putting people low. Getting this double kill was huge, I feel. Again, knowing when to get in, but look at this. Also, when to get out. Staying available, man. It's just good DPS uptime. Terminus unable to get that, reanimate started fast enough before the payload just went on in.
And I just want to point out, too, that didn't happen on the player side. That was
Yeah.
purely a spectator thing.
Purely a spectator thing.
We went into the booth just to double check.
Yeah.
Like that nothing for that happened to the players, purely on our end for the spectator. And Terminus, he was actually so close to the edge of the cart contest rate that millisecond, that small moment where he was dead and not contesting was enough where that once you res, you're immediately contesting again. But it was just out of the radius.
Start the animation, right?
Yeah, as soon as you start the animation, you're already contesting. As soon as you have more than 1 HP, you're contesting. But just that second, the card
That's
moved
how close
an
it was,
inch.
man.
It was that close.
We saw that yesterday as well. The failed Terminus ult and the payload went on through. It's tragic. You got to do it right. Smoke him if you got him. The game's over. Unless you're planning on saving your ultimate for next game somehow, and I don't know. Then that's what you got to go for, man. The Knights, SSG, it's been close. But again, if this ends up being 4-0, it's like it doesn't really tell the whole story. I mean, these have been very kind of contested, explosive games.
Hey, do you think this is going to be a 2-4?
I don't know, man.
It'll be the third in a row.
It's
That's
wild.
some symmetry.
That's what I'm saying. Like, these games, it's like happening time after time. Whoever's capping this payload has such an explosive offense that most of the time they're getting their conversions as well. And Sadak feeling it, the boys, SSG. Feeling good today. It feels good to come out on top of these types of wins, too. It's not easy. It's not a blowout. Sometimes it looks that way at the start, but these have all ended up being pretty hard-fought games where it looks like a blowout, and then both teams managed to find ways to bounce back one way or another, because Knights have had super strong starts, too, that SSG have had to bounce back from. SSG have had super strong starts that the Knights can and have bounced back from. I mean, really a good set, despite the 3-0 scoreline would indicate.
I mean, it's what, 12-6 right now?
Yeah.
It's still pretty close, 66-33. Split on the points across the board for them. Bans, interesting. Cassie coming out from the bans for the Knights. I think that might make sense. You don't want the Scout to be able to make your Strix more easy to dive and pressure. And just getting that Strix, we know how much of a force he can be. We saw it earlier when FRC was piloting him on Warder's Gate. Very, very strong. That burst damage is powerful. And SSG draft what I would consider to be a very strong tank composition, but not the best late game tank comp.
Okay.
Barrett, Khan, both I think very susceptible to Wrecker. Khan definitely more so than Barrick. Wrecker does a lot at limiting their survivability. And Knights, Strix is a pretty good wrecker. I mean, that
Yeah.
burst damage getting even stronger, plus the pistol with the wrecker too. You can't ignore that.
Yep, for sure. Extremely high scaling values for Strix. So even with just Wrecker 1, he's already a threat. Maeve, over is the next selection here for the Knights. With Cassie Band out, Maeve picked away.
Good night.
You might think that that puts some pressure on the back line for SSG, but I think
Come on.
Aries is feeling it in the hit scan category right
Yeah.
now. He might just try to run back like a Leon or something like that. Freeze is picking Eevee on very non-traditional maps, and this is, frankly, a pretty good Eevee map in my opinion.
For
so
sure.
I don't see him really hesitating to go to her. A Luminary as well is really, really nice to compare with that. And it looks like it might be the way that they go.
I was going to say, if they're going to pick the Eevee, it's going to be in this rotation because now they can be flexible with what Ares ends up playing. What backline might be better against what they're bringing out. I mean, Leon's still up, Shaolin still up, Victor's still up. Victor traditionally very good on Stone Keep. Definitely something I wouldn't be too shocked to see depending on the final tank.
How do you
and
think that
support.
is?
Why is Victor so good?
Yeah, I don't really, on Stone Keep specifically, like,
The nade is really good for getting people around corners. Any
Sure.
backline that also has indirect damage is going to be good. Because you can just... Shrapnel Vic used to be the thing. I know SK back in the day had this dumb strat where they ran Willow Victor and you would just die in your own banana rolling out. You'd get Grover Axed, Victor Shrapneled when it had the damage boost, and Willow Nightshade comboed. And your tanks would be 2 HP, your support would be in the back crying, both your DPSs would be dead. It was just an unfortunate situation.
the way she goes. So fighting over Keep, is that where, you know, fighting around the line of sights is most relevant, or is that, you know, also apply to Church as well?
I think it applies to both angles now
Take
in the
our
meta because
right.
Victor, he has so much raw damage that if you're playing on the outside in the church spamming
You
up into the
trespass
keep,
and are
it's just
unwanted,
as hard to walk through the
stranger.
doors versus, you know, the burst from a Leon. It's still just raw damage, and if he gets a lot and you try to back away, he can chase you down with a nade. He can throw a nade way into the back to support his team if they're diving. Doesn't need to necessarily commit himself. A lot of
The next
flexibility
time
from
you
that
see
Victor
my
if they choose to bring it
banners,
out.
It's been a
run.
super good day for Ares on the hit scan, whether it's been Leon, whether, I mean, his Victor and his Leon from the Warder's Gate game and the Ice Mines game were pretty comparable in terms of his slash line, in terms of his damage, and damn sure in terms of his impact. Ares has had a really kind of electric day, almost an MVP type of performance day, and I think this is really good for his confidence, right? Especially
For sure.
after the way things weren't yesterday. This is a critical one. It's a 3-0 for SSG, but don't be fooled by that. It's been a very tightly contested set. However, it is what it is. SSG could close it out. Let's head it down to the casters and get game 4 underway.
Right you are, Nick. It has been very contested. Despite 3-0, what you see on your screen, I think 4-2 is maybe the closest we've seen so far in this set. Back and forth, to be sure. And the Knights now needing to win 4 straight. SSG, just 1 more.
So much that could be on the line. A lot that can change with this. And also, very kind of indicative, I guess, of what we're wondering going into qualifiers, going into the World Championship. It's where these teams end up in response to each other. And I think this is more or less an example that you never know when you
Yeah.
come in on that day who's going to just
That's
have
true. You don't.
those standout performances. I mean, yesterday, 4-2 between Envy and SSG. That makes sense to me. This potentially being a 4-0 between SSG and Knights doesn't quite click the way that it should. And that's just because SSG are playing out of their minds today in comparison. But Ricotta's back on the Strix. It's going to be good to see what he can accomplish with it, especially against something like the Eevee.
And this is an important win for SSG to kind of stay the pace with Envy, who beat them yesterday for the first time in the PPL in 2019. So trying to kind of bring that gap back. You don't want to lose this one, and then, you know, Envy feeling confident in their game later today. Try to at least keep pace. Although down here on Stone Keep, they got 1 more game to win before that's a certainty. 75% for the Knights. Ares back on the Leon. Freeze God 1 more time on this Eevee. Now as G-Bunny kind of flanking around the backside. Simsaloo grabs the first blood onto Midtown at 96%. The rest of SSG is going to have to do it without healing, and things are not looking good for the red team, although they are on the point, mitigating a little bit. Now it's down to Sadak just trying to stay alive.
It took them a little bit to get aggressive, to get into SSG's territory. Once they were able to break free, well, they broke free. Simsaloo, really good daggers there at
Yeah.
the end. trail up and follow up on Freeze God to lock him down. And I think what we're going to be looking at through all of this, well, Simsalou 3-0 definitely helps. But Ares' performance, they were mentioning it on the desk. Very good on Warder's Gate, very, very good on Ice Mines. How does he do here? And I think he's the opener for the team. Rachao, Sadat can get aggressive. Freeze God can do whatever kind of poke he wants to do. But at the end of the day, I think Ares might be the key for SSG to find this as a 4-0.
That's a midnight from Simsalou. Ares grabs the kill in the meantime, though, on a Cutie of all people. Another double kill. The Leon maybe starting to heat up here for SSG. Looking for one more shot. Zerini wins the trade, though. But SSG, in the bigger picture, win this defensive stand. Now a minute and 40 seconds left. Pittsburgh Knights back and respawning, and looks like they maybe want to try to refight. Zerini throws down the seismic crash, and Rachao throws down the dome shield as well.
Really well played coming down from SSG. Good reactions. Not sure how much I feel this dome shield usage, but it's already out there, so they're going to have to keep it the way it is. It's going to charge up a little slower than we're going to see out of Zerini, so seismic crash. More than likely, I don't want to say definitely, but I would say high 80s, low 90s at worst.
Yep.
By the time the next round comes around. He has a minute to charge that up. Whereas I think over here for Rachao, he's going to spend a little longer trying to get that dome shield back and in a position where it's going to be potable again.
You can tell G-Bunny's feeling confident with Simsalou here. Simsalou's going to hit the important daggers, and that's to finish off Freeze God. Now Payload back to moving forward, and both damage dealers down for Space Station Gaming. You need some of that long-range Leon damage to try to mitigate this push from the Knights. And Zerini now chasing around a couple. This is looking bad for SSG.
Yeah, taking really weird routes. Simsalou is just playing really, really damn well. It's two things that you can't quite factor into the draft that are happening right now. And, well, I was thinking it was going to take him a little longer to walk that one in. Zerini doesn't even get the chance to get the last 20% that I was hoping he would see.
It only took the movement speed of the Payload to work its way into the base of Space Station Gaming. Here's Ricotta. He's had a sort of an off day, by his standards at least. And so you hope that you're able to put in a good performance on the Strix here on Stone Keep.
He had some really nice shots through that sequence. Really solid ones coming through that maybe make up for what we've seen so far. Yeah. It falls in that awkward area of how well he does from this point forward is going to be more telling. Simsalou is going insane. I think Ricotta only had one death on his name, and now 13,000 damage above anybody on SSG. But yeah, 4-1 and 8, 8-2 and 3.
Yep.
Got to be able to find them, and that's where it comes down to Freeze God. That's where it comes down to Ares. How many kills they're finding, who they are finding them on are going to be more important. Target focus needs to change for SSG.
One more midnight drapes down for Simsalou. G-Bunny with the first kill. The daggers have been good from Simpson. He's on point tank duty right now, despite having an IO on his team. Finally moving forward, looking to get aggressive onto Freeze God. Ice Storm prevents Simpsy from fully diving in. 72% now for the Knights, and SSG kind of all separated in shambles. Overpower connects onto Ricotta, but that delays him from really getting in range to grab a touch. Might rely on Rachao to move forward. Overtime does begin with a chance for SSG.
And that's Freeze God playing this EV incredibly well. Again, comeback mechanic this time around, and, well, no Luna as well. Makes it a little easier for them to sit here. They should be able to match 70%. With the Knights positioning right now, they definitely can move up and still fight into this. But a dome shield aggressively, they're putting on a good zone, and 2 kills, that might seal the deal.
Yeah, the front line's just holding down Banana right now. Ricotta not in the spot to contest. Seismic Crash drops right on down. The front liners getting it done for SSG. As Zerini's going to get the overtime touch. No, he's not. Thanks to a good commander's grab. Overtime does reset. Space Station Gaming grabbed themselves point number 1 thanks to Fast Cap.
Still 14,000 damage ahead for Ricotta. That's kind of where my eyes will be. It was Freeze God earlier who was able to get, what, 50,000, I think, over the Knights when he was playing it. So it'll be fun to see how that little competition, sub-competition goes, and the real competition, that is the PPL. As well, with 2 minutes left, try and find a push. Conversion here, tying the game up. might not work as well at the end of the day for SSG, considering how much of that last point is won because they have that deficit. But it does put them in the right area. That capture gives them 300 credits each. They can then invest it where they want to. And Sadak has opted in for that Illuminate to start spotting out this Strix a little easier, a little sooner, and a little further away to make sure Ricotta can't just get away from him.
And, you know, I kind of looked down at the damage charts, and it's not quite the same story because a moment ago, Ares was, you know, down beneath some of the frontliners. Now you can kind of see him. You can see how close he is to a couple of those people now kind of climbing back down. I think if Ares, not that he's having a bad game, he's on a 6 streak right now. I think he's having a good game here on Stone Keep. But if he starts to really climb those damage charts, that's going to be a difference maker for SSG. Zarini doing a good job of preventing that. But watch out. Once Ares starts to kind of heat up and really get into this game, things might look a little bit differently for Space Station.
And I think that's kind of the key right here, right? I mean, Freeze God has a lot of damage under his name, top in the game outside of the Strix, who can kind of count as an outlier for the whole range that we're looking at. But he can only do so much in terms of converting that into kills. Leon is amazing at taking you from 100 to 0. She's amazing in 1v1s, amazing for fights. And I think given the right circumstances here, especially with Ares, if he starts having really good games, good round like he had at the beginning of this one, it absolutely not only converts this, but it switches SSG into win mode.
I think that was a great Ice Storm from Freeze God, zoned off. G-Bunny and Simsalute forced out the Midnight defensively as well to avoid the kill from being confirmed. 15 seconds left, Freeze God looking for an angle, finds just a side shot onto Ricotta, who can't peek his head out right now, with Sadak and Rochelle both falling. I think this spells point number 3 for the Pittsburgh Knights. They're going to move themselves 1 point away from their first point in this set.
All they need is one little capture. It's probably the most difficult thing to do against a team that has any sort of capture increase, which is going to be SSG in this case. It's also difficult to do mainly against Overpower and Dome Shield, but you've got good fair few of ults for Knights to be able to just seal the deal. Specifically looking at, you put Luna down, you get aggressive with G-Bunny and Zarini, and then all of a sudden, if you need it, you have Be Gone to get them off the point, but you don't really have to use the 3 in order to win this fight, especially considering how cleanly they've been winning fights up to this point.
And, you know, they'll need one more clean mid. They don't have the Midnight. That, as I mentioned, sort of in the end of the last round, forced defensively by Freeze God. Sadak has the Overpower, so he might save that for the Assert Dominance. We do see that kind of dynamic, one saved for the other. Dome Shield now for Rochelle, just to buy him some space up into the high ground. Ricotta with a big double kill. Freeze God and Midtown both killed. Rochelle catches a seismic crash as well, and the Knights starting to run away with this mid fight.
It's going to need a miracle comeback for this one. Uses the Enlightenment just to stay alive.
I don't see it.
Not going to get a trade. They're getting aggressive. They have 3 ults still on the Knights, and they're going to use the Midnight to make sure they maintain this lead.
87%. The time is now for Space Station Gaming to get back in. Be Gone used, 99%. Nobody in range, and the Pittsburgh Knights are going to grab win number 1 in this first set of Friday.
And honestly, that felt much more like the Knights I'm used to seeing more than anything. I don't think SSG played much poorly there.
No.
I think Ares maybe could have gone a little bigger compared to what we've seen in this set. That was a little more lackluster. But that was Ricotta shining up again. That was Simsalute starting to hit again, as well as the 2 tanks who have been having some very hit-or-miss performances today so far. Knights, that was more akin to yesterday when they're beating the Renegades, more akin to what I expect out of them as they've made their climb this split.
Expectations, I agree, sort of matching now maybe for the Knights, and a little bit different from what we've seen. Again, Ricotta didn't have Ares didn't have a bad game on the Leon, but not quite the back-to-back 20-kill performance now that we've seen out of him the last couple of games. I think maybe that changes. That number's a little bit higher for Space Station Gaming. Maybe the outcome's different, but those were the numbers, and that is the win for the Pittsburgh Knights. Still set point for SSG right after this.
Skillshot, the official production partner of the Paladins Premier League.
There we go, boys. The script has been flipped. Finally, an explosive start for the Knights that they managed to transition into a win. Close out the game 4-1 there. Pretty dominant stuff from them.
Yeah.
What, if anything, was a kind of a turning factor for them?
I think the DPS is just kind of turned on. I mean, they were playing, I think, a lot better Simsaloo, finding kills, being able to get away, and shutting down. I think shutting down FRZ a little bit more. FRZ was still able to do a respectable amount, but definitely just the abilities coming out from the DPS is kind of having a little bit more space opened up for them across the board.
Such a threat, man. Ricotta, Simsaloo tag teaming a lot of these kills, doing a lot of damage. G-Bunny, of course, providing the zone and the space, but especially in that early round, Simsaloo going to work 3 early kills, I think I saw in the first round or after the first mid-fight. Ends up 12-6, 8-3. Not a lot of pressure to the backline. That's another thing we noticed. Watched a lot of Freeze God. Wasn't really able to make it all the way to the backline to kind of deal with Ricotta, so he was left largely alone. I want to say of those 3 deaths, at least 1 on camera to overpower, right? So the other 2, I can't remember exactly where they came, but there's a chance that another one was. Yes, you're right.
Cross-map
the cross-map, that awkward just cross-map con-tickle. So yeah, that also could happen. Ricotta having a couple of big moments, not only for himself, capitalizing on kills, 100-0 all by himself, but a lot of these shots, like that first shot, 1,200 damage, that then Simsaloo is able to transition and clean it up. It's a powerful 1-2 punch. Again, 3 deaths total, 1 to overpower, 1 kind of being tickled cross-map immediately after the point gets captured. And then 1 somewhere else in there, right? Not a lot of deaths, not a lot of dying, lots and lots of shooting, lots and lots of hits, kills, and uptime for Ricotta. That's a good thing, man. It's a simple equation when you're playing a sniper, right?
Yeah.
You aim down the scope, you hit the shots, and you stay alive and just continue to do your thing.
And that's one of the reasons why Strix is just so good right now. He can play so much safer than everybody else. I mean, Leon, Cassie, their shots maybe a little harder, maybe a little more inconsistent, maybe some fall off at range. Strix doesn't care. He's doing 1,200 whether you're in his face or on another map.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. He's still going to be doing all that damage and bursting you down when you get close with the pistol, which, I mean, he's not using it when he's fighting, right? Cassie, maybe she just 4 shots, gets dove, now she only has 2 left. Strix has a fully loaded pistol in his pocket.
Yeah.
So much presence he can have.
He keeps that thang on him. You know
Always
what I'm saying?
keeps that thang on
Got to
him.
keep the thang on you. Low cooldown. What do we end up coming to? 1,200 damage flare, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, it's 1,200 on the flare because it's 800 and then a 400 burn after.
Yeah.
So it's 2,400 damage if he quickscopes you and then flares you.
It's so much burst potential, especially if you're taking a shot from the sniper on the way in. And even if you don't, you're still under a threat from when he switches to that pistol, hits you with the flare. It's top dog in the league right now, a lot are saying, at least in the DPS category. Willow's kind of stint at the top was a little bit short-lived. I still think Willow's super potent on her maps. Namely, Splitstone Quarry is the one that I think she goes pretty much top dollar on. But Knights able to grab this 1 win, keep themselves alive in the set. However, 3 in a row at the start of this set, and the map picks now for SSG. I mean, if they just get to keep picking the map essentially until they win, and when they do win, the set's over. So probably in a pretty good spot now, I think, mentally. Are there any maps left in the pool, if you can remember, that SSG are going to want to maybe go to and avoid? I think we have Splitstone left. Timber Mill was banned out. I believe Frog was banned out. Frozen Guard, I believe, was banned out as well.
I mean, they have Shattered Desert still up. They have Serpent Beach still up. Ascension
looked good for them.
Yeah, all maps that I think they like and are going to be willing to go to. Honestly, if I had to pick the 3 maps that are going to close out this set, those are the 3 that I would say. If they're all going to be SSG's pick, if Knights somehow take all of them, that's where I'd expect to go. Wouldn't be too surprised to see that. Shattered Desert, I think, is one that they might avoid till later because I think they believe Knights are also pretty strong on that map.
That's a fun conversation because when that map came into rotation, the Knights were one of the first people to play on it, and they won the game. By what means, it's tough to say, right? It's a brand new thing, and so we just kind of said, oh, the Knights, Shattered Desert, it's their map. And I remember talking to Cuss on one of the walks, kind of back and forth from the booth, and he's like, we actually kind of suck on that map. I don't know why. It's good for us that everybody thinks we're popping there, but it's really not somewhere we want to go too often. How that has evolved, it's tough to say.
They like it now.
A funny little anecdote. We'll take a look here at the maps. No more waiting for you. Bada bing, bada boom. Shattered Desert will be up next. Now, What is it about this map that you think makes SSG like it?
It really is open for the chaos. I mean, that's kind of what they like, and Knights say,
devil, man.
we
Yeah.
know exactly what you're going to want. We know what you're going to want to cause, and we're going to get rid of it. Cassie, Ruckus, off the board, two strong picks for SSG now. They're not going to be able to do.
Ghost feather
They're going to
reporting.
start with, looks like, it'll be Strix. Now without the Ruckus to get on him, that
Yeah.
Strix becomes astronomically better. They just banned 2 Strix counters. Now SSG has to figure out something else to be able to pressure the Ghost Feather himself.
Rukata's already in a pretty good rhythm on the character as well. If you saw game number 4 on Stone Keep, you learned that firsthand. SSG still want to be able to dive. I would say, if you don't have Ruckus, Ashe is kind of the next best thing. Right?
Yeah.
You have this AoE explosion. If you can make sure your shots are landing in the ground roughly around Strix, you still get that AoE explosion. And you still have a pretty good chance at keeping him tracked down. Ave as well is taking that away from Simsalou, breaking up the rhythm, right? You don't want to let a team get into a rhythm, just keep running back the same characters in ideal situations and take you out that way. Barrack Khan is going to be hovered and locked in here. No supports yet through the first 5.
Yeah, and we're probably going to see one here. SSG most likely probably going to go for Genos, I would say, judging by what's remaining, maybe Genos, and either be willing to play the Inara Genos composition, or we're going to go with Furia, but a little bit better to have that extra healing to pair with the Inara, which is probably coming next, unless they want to do some weird Nando double off tank shenanigans, and they will not. Inara going to be the stalwart point tank pick for them. We mentioned that the Ashe is definitely better, a decent pick into the Strix, but the Ruckus just does so much more damage too. Like, yeah, you can shoot him, you see where he is, but that splash is doing like 100.
But you're also,
You gotta hit like 22 of those to make anything happen.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
That's a lot of reloading. The damage potential is just so stacked in the other side. Wouldn't be surprised to see these two locked in though. The Inflame, Midnight, aggressive Ashes or Dominance combo would be strong, but they might want the point presence instead. Io coming in to be able to put Luna on the objective while they play aggressive on the other sides. And 25% DR on anybody that gets pocketed can kind of help swing that 1v1 against the Strix if that's how it turns out.
That deep diving DR is important, right? Whether it's for Maeve, whether it's for Ashe, or probably a little bit for both of them. That's kind of the cool thing about Io is the flexibility to quickly swap between targets as long as you maintain that line of sight. Genos is still available for Cuss Cutie and the Knights. And so far, it's a nice pairing with Barrack. It's kind of tough to say. Who doesn't want 15% extra damage? They haven't drafted a super healing sponge either. Barrack does a good job sustaining on his own, which is part of the reason Genos is such a nice pairing with him. For the first time this set, Knights will be able to grab Eevee, and Breeze will have to play something else.
Simslou's going to have to warm up his wrists to get ready to play this Eevee.
Yeah.
As he always says. He always talks about how his flicking on Eevee just annihilates his wrists, but we'll see. He had that little player break between this. Maybe he'll be ready for it. This is a kind of a dream Genos comp, for sure, coming out from the Knights, I think. Barrack, Khan, 2 of the best tanks to pair with the Genos. Strix, Eevee, phenomenal DPSs that do huge burst damage, which only gets amplified even further by the Luminary boost. SSG, few options remaining what they're going to pick. I feel like Leon is the safe choice. Not only is it pretty good at trading out the Eevee, but it can kind of duel the Strix depending on if the Leon can get the first shot.
Yeah, for sure. At least she can, be that setup, right? Strix can set up a lot of kills, and Rukata finished a lot of what he started on Stone Keep, but softening up a target to then have Eevee come through and finish it off is a good idea. It's going to be Vivian. We've got this double wrecker, this double shielding front line for the Knights. Clearly the strong point in their draft. Ban Ruckus, ban Cassie, pick Strix, pair with a Luminary. That's where they are wanting their win condition, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like, I kind of like the idea that SSG are attacking not what's strong about the Knights draft, but what is a little bit weaker, what's a little bit more susceptible.
I think it could be good for it. Melting down those tanks, having that Vivian, maybe not what they're ready for. Also, Sensor Drone on the Strix too, something that we're probably not really considering. Having that reveal, I doubt Ares is going to run a hardcore reveal build, but it's still an option that they can have to make that Strix a little bit less survivable.
I like what they've done, man. There's a couple of big things here. Holes certainly in the draft for the Knights, but they have such a very strong win condition. They've gone all in here on the Strix. Another chance for SSG to close it out if they can claim Shattered Desert. Dave, Gore, take it away.
And another chance for Rakata to have a big game for the Pittsburgh Knights. Backs against the wall. They need to now win 3 straight. SSG only needing one more game to take this set over the Pittsburgh Knights. They grab themselves some Vivian. I wouldn't say she's super in meta, but not necessarily out of meta. I assume that means Freeze on the Maeve, Ares on the Vivian, but kind of an onslaught awaiting for the Pittsburgh, or against Spacestation Gaming for the Pittsburgh Knights between the Strix and this Eevee and the Barrack and the Khan. All things get better with a little Luminary.
Little Luminary on top never hurts anybody in terms of damage. The biggest thing that's going to play,
Space Station.
unless you're Space Station. But it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it, specifically because Ricotta, it's not the most open map for a sniper.
Sure.
There's a lot of bibs and bobs, ups and downs, hills between everything. That it's going to just make it a little more difficult, I think, for him to consistently deal damage, although it doesn't seem to be hurting him right now. As that burst, as Kresnik had put it, as you had just mentioned, is definitely going to be such a huge factor, and it's going to be devastating for pretty much everybody on SSG.
It's a good example of the Luna stun onto Zarini. Might have been dead anyway, but at least locked up Zarini for a little bit longer. And you know, when we're not on Ares' cam, you can kind of hear in the distance just the constant spraying of bullets from this Vivian, and that's never a good sign if you're going against it. He does find 3 kills to start off this game. Flashbang is going to set up a good fight here as G-Bunny starts to help out the defense by opening up a little bit of space.
Going to get a nice little grab. Starting off the defense, like you said, in a nice way so far. Nothing to tie a bow on yet. Still 2 minutes left. This is just such an awkward map for everything, I think, that comes through. The feel of this map compared to everything else, it's so many avenues that you can go through, so many different scenarios that can kind of play out in front of you based on offense, defense, mid-fights, etc., etc. And so even starting it off well, like the Knights have, and actually pretty controlling as they get aggressive into this as well, it's never enough, even with Freeze got dismounted just outside of his base, for me to say that, yes, you're looking like a good defense. Because one breakdown is all it needs for them to get back to that payload.
As a friendly reminder, the Pittsburgh Knights are on defense.
Yeah, right.
Space Station Gaming are trying to break out and get back to that payload. I guess you kind of have to be aware of maybe forgetting where Freeze God is if you're this far away from the payload. I mean, I would say no chance. I mean, maybe that's what Freeze God is thinking about there, kind of wrapping around and getting a touch onto the payload. But they're covering their avenues. And this is a map where, you know, there's kind of 3, 4 little inlets or outlets, depending on which way you're trying to go. So there's always the chance of maybe somebody finding their way through, but looks like they're just going to brute force their way back out to the payload.
Sometimes that's what you have to do. Again, that one is not even coming from Paladins experience. That's coming from programming experience. Sometimes there's elegant algorithms. There's all these cool ways to figure out a problem. And sometimes you just got to brute force it and just figure out the problem, break it down.
It comes to you at 3 in the morning, you wake up and go to your computer to fix it, right?
Or 3 in the morning after you've been drinking, one of the two. Either way,
I have to go home
they
now.
are very, very good. I mean, there's I can't remember what it's called. I always forget the name of it. But there's a theoretical level of drunk that is perfect for programming. I do not condone doing it all the time. If you are in school for that right now, but, you know, maybe you try once or twice, and like 4 weeks before your due date to make sure that it doesn't hinder you in any way.
You assume I get anything done that far ahead of my due date.
As anybody who gets a project and actually starts it immediately is a liar.
Yeah, and I imagine Space Station Gaming feeling similar. They start off the project, that offensive project, somewhat okay, but fall just short at the finish line. A good defense from the Knights. Payload never really moved that far.
Should have started that push 4 weeks earlier. It could have been finished by now. Either way,
there you go,
it's not going to work out for him as it comes
full
through.
circle. That connects.
Really, really well played around the mid-fight. Really a ton of damage that comes down from Ares, and that's not what I expected, if I'm being honest. I knew, yep, anytime you see a Strix shot, it's going to hurt. Anytime you see an Eevee shot, it's going to hurt. I didn't really think Ares was going to be the wrecking ball. That kind of came through for SSG, a lot for them. And you know, one thing that I guess I haven't dove into that would be a very easy topic, we have seen Maeve versus Maeve and Eevee versus Eevee between Simsaloo and Freeze God. And we have seen Eevee versus Maeve with Freeze God on Eevee, Simsaloo on Maeve. Having that flip is putting maybe more to the test for Simsaloo than it is for Freeze. So it's nice to see
Yep.
maybe that change of pace so far for SSG being a pretty winning decision.
Well, talk about a change of pace. This is a mid-fight for the ages if you're Space Station Gaming. Rakata's able to swing one back for the Knights. But the early ultimate usage by Space Station Gaming control of this first point. The question is now, can the Knights use those 4 ultimates that are ready to go? No Dome Shield, maybe an Overpower tilts this one back to 84%.
I mean, sitting in 93, that should give them overtime, at least to be able to kind of go through. They're starting everything up, but that's going to be Zerini caught off onto the side, almost low, and just low enough to get the kill.
And they are just not able to move themselves right back in onto the payload. Simsalou grabs a double kill. This is all just too late. Space Station Gaming grabbed themselves point number 2, although much the same as the first time. The Knights are able to start off that defense pretty well. Great healing from Midtow. Sadak bouncing around 100 health, give or take 50, and he stays alive there. That actually maybe keeps things in the balance here for the Knights. Space Station Gaming looking a little bit better this time to get this payload moving.
And already, again, kill onto Zerini. The story for the Knights has been kind of all around these front lines. Rakata doing well, Simsalou doing well. Zerini even, G-Bunny negative so far. And that's kind of where things are starting to break apart, but they do have resilience coming online. It's going to help deal with a lot of the ults from SSG. So if SSG, if this stays tied up, it starts to kind of wane for them.
Yeah.
All 4 out of 5 of these ults are going to be mitigated
Good shots.
as they get that resilience. So it's going to start making a big difference if Knights can get more.
Well, the Midnight buys a kill onto Rakata and G-Bunny. That Strick so important on the defensive side. Now things starting to go in the wrong direction. Not completely staggered, kind of a clean team wipe. 2-3 seconds between everybody, but that's going to buy a lot of time and a lot of space. If they can now stagger on the respawns, this is looking bad for the Pittsburgh Knights, but Rakata in a good spot to help defend.
Right around the pillar, Seismic Crash going to be good onto Zerini. This payload, it might just be walking in. If G-Bunny goes down, this is going to be almost a guaranteed confirm for SSG. A lot of pressure onto Ares to burn through that shield.
And that Khan trying to stay alive, but a big double kill from Freeze God. Rolls that payload right on in. And now 1 point away, our Space Station Gaming from taking this set in 4-1 fashion.
This is the most difficult point,
Yeah.
I would argue, of the set more than anything, but they've been pretty commanding on this objective so far. So it's not too late to count out what the Knights can do, but gotta look at least at the performance they've had. Sentinel's ready. Seismic Crash was just used midnight. A little over halfway there. Should charge up pretty quickly. But the Assert Dominance, the Begone, those 2 things are going to set you up either to push them just right out of there or to let you get aggressive, zone them out. And with Sentinels specifically, I mean, Ares has been doing a ton of damage without them. Add those on top, and, well, he melts tanks.
Ultimates relatively even. Sentinels out now for Ares. G-Bunny has to battle shout, and Commanders grab his way defensively. Cuss Cutie slightly caught out. Rakata's able to trade out a kill, so Doc needs to find one more. Assert Dominance not in time. That's a big difference maker here. He's going to have it maybe when he's getting back and respawning. Luna buying a lot of time, though, for Space Station.
I mean, doing so much. Zerini has spent no time on this objective as of right now. It's already 87%, and they're still going up with it. Midnight's going to come through. They can get aggressive into this again.
They're just going to ignore the Dome Shield and try to fight this on the backside of the fight. G-Bunny grabs himself the overpower kill. Sadak, though, is able to trade out one more. Assert Dominance finally dropping down for Sadak, the front line for Space Station Gaming. Keeping themselves in it through time and space, just to the right for Cuss Cutie. Luna mitigating some percentage for the Knights, but a nice double shot from Rakata keeps the Knights in control.
Someone's got to deal with this Strix, and it looks like Rachau's coming up in a way that might be able to do so. 96% for them with 3 members down. Now Rachau spotted out and kind of isolated. It's going to take a lot more than just a little bit of effort from this Inara to get back there.
It's getting fired upon for both angles. 93% for the Pittsburgh Knights. Contest is happening, but Freeze God the first to go down. Rakata moving forward. The rest of his team does as well. Flashbang to the left. Shoulder bash on in for Sadak. Rakata confirming one more shot. Ares forced to back off. Catches a flare. That's going to melt down that health bar, and once Sadak drops, so do the Space Station chances. one more fight for the Knights, keep them in this game.
G-Bunny, Simsu, they pick up those last couple of kills. They have a big impact on this. So does Cuss. But let's be honest, that was Ricotta. That was just so much Ricotta throughout that fight that he does so well. 5-5 at the beginning of this, 11-5-2 now.
Yeah.
And jeez, if that was just not picture-perfect Strix play. I mean, finding shots, very, very zoned in, to audio cues, to any little detail that could give him an advantage. And, I mean, there were so many moments where it's like Ares poked his head out for a second, but that Luminary headshot does just enough damage to, well, kind of ruin his life. Same thing there for Freeze God. Once he gets taken down in a couple of those scenarios, it all falls. And a lot of it comes down from that very initial fight. You called it as it was. A little late on the assert dominance. I think Ares a little late on the turnaround to focus Strix.
Sure.
Ricotta got away from that first engagement with a few hundred health, and that's where things started to go wrong.
Too much uptime for the Strix. Payload moving quickly. Another big kill onto Sadak. The front lines for Space Station have not had quite as easy a time staying involved. Freeze God is around the back of the Knights here as he drops down the Midnight, looking for an angle onto Ricotta. It's going to expire. I don't think he knows he's there. Does become privy to the matter. 3 shots, 3 connects for Freeze God, but the fight rages on in the front line, Goran. Pittsburgh Knights are still winning.
Gonna need a little more. Simsaloo has a lot of damage coming for him once that ice block ends. It's gonna connect, and if Ares is in a good position, especially if Freeze God does what Freeze God's been doing best so far, which is just slaying people, then this is SSG's game still. But it's just those slip-ups. It's when Ares maybe takes one step too far. Maybe he gets too aggressive with Sadak. Maybe Sadak gets too aggressive. When they can't all 3 fire on the same cylinder, it falls apart. And I mean, this is even with Mitao 0-9 right now, by the way. That's another big factor. Their healer's uptime has not been anywhere near as much as they would like, but he's still getting a lot done.
This could be the fight to end the round. Big one for Space Station Gaming. Seismic Crash used. G-Bunny with another first kill, an opening kill onto Ares. Sadak drops down as well, and with 8 seconds left, Pittsburgh Knights on the front foot. Maybe a kill from Mitao to keep things stable. Overtime's going to start with G-Bunny getting melted away.
And a good kill coming down from Freeze God as well. You do have Zarini maintaining and controlling as much as they can, but with overtime there, the wall going down, looks like SSG are in control.
I think they're in a great spot. Ares is able to respawn, get back out, and keep this one at a 3-2 differential. They'll have half fast cap for the Knights, so that's something to keep your eye on as well, especially if they kind of retake the mid in the same way that they have. This is a brilliant volley of daggers from Freeze God. Such like a minimum play, just kind of a one-off little instance. But that just shows you the power of a Maeve. You're hitting those daggers consistently, and it's going to hurt.
And the lead up to that was popping Midnight, and you see 2 shots come down from Ricotta, both of which are, I assume you're getting aggressive onto me. I assume you are trying to fight me. And then, ultimately, neither connect. Freeze God waits until Midnight is gone. Ricotta's kind of stopped paying attention to him, assumes he's safe. Then he goes in and finds those daggers. Really well played from him. Really good patience on the Maeve. I hope to see that carry through. See what happens this round.
They're going to have some good ultimates. Mitao with the first blood as well. Midnight one more time for Space Station Gaming. Luna out to the point. G-Bunny is going to connect with the overpower into the Dome Shield just to burn down the healer for Space Station Gaming. Now Rochelle caught out. They're going to maybe hold on to their ultimates here for the retake attempt. That's Zarini just trying to mitigate. Sadak does have the assert dominance, drops it right on down, doesn't grab the stun, but does maybe delay his death just a little bit longer.
I mean, being able to hold on to this might be able to kill Zarini. One more shot's going to be one more kill for him. And if he can get out of here, no body blocked onto the objective, so he's not going to be able to dash out, is staggered out completely from his team, but maintain control. That half comeback mechanic captures fast, but they're only at 60% as of right now. Enough time for SSG to get back in.
Through time and space, no way for the Knights. You only have Be Gone if you're Space Station Gaming.
Oof.
That could be the difference maker. Losing Ares this close to it being captured, I don't think is a good sign for Space Station Gaming. You got your frontliners and your healer. Seismic Crash, maybe just to delay this one out. Sadak getting shot down by Simsaloo. Now it's down to Rochelle, and once he dies, doesn't feel very good. Big triple kill, actually, for the Eevee to put the cap on this one, and we're tied with a chance to win for the Knights.
And a lot of that fight is Simsaloo, his positioning. He gets aggressive and he doesn't get punished for it. From the start of when Ares died to every single kill that followed, he was in a prime spot to just get free damage. No one was looking at him. There was nothing really to threaten him, especially considering the first 2 kills in that were Ares followed by Freeze God, the 2 highest priority targets. I mean, Sadat can do a lot in terms of control, but he's not going to kill you, not the way that they are. And so that was very easily the best decision by the Knights to make those calls.
I don't know. This is not a convincing start to this defense just yet for Space Station.
No.
They were able to defend in overtime. Very close to going in. Another overpower for G-Bunny, though. Kaskuti's going to grab the kill. Payload's still moving forward. Simsalou going toe-to-toe with Rochelle. Ares back into the fight. Grabs the kill here. Serini just a couple shots away from getting Sadak. But important trades for SSG on the backside with Rochelle getting a kill onto G-Bunny as well.
G-Bunny on a hit scan champion is just scary.
It is.
When it comes down to it. I think that's the biggest thing I'm learning. I mean, that ult is not easy to connect in general, but being able to connect it on a Mave in midair, that's ridiculous to me. And so being able to pull that down just to solidify a kill on the Freeze God is impressive from him. And again, it kind of goes to show that if Knights win this one and you go forward, I gotta think more about that Khan and where he's going to end up. As of right now, SSG, I mean, backs against the wall, they have them figured out. That overpower has gone onto Mave or onto Mitau every single time, and it's been big because of that.
Pittsburgh Knights are starting to invest some ultimates as well. Flashbang, Ice Storm, both used Midnight defensively from Space Station Gaming. Freeze God now kind of looping on this left-hand side. Simsalou knows where he is. Great daggers from Freeze God, sets up the kill for Sadak. And that's a big one, losing Simsalou this early on in that fight. 30 seconds left. They're able to stagger out just a little bit longer. Zarini very low here as well. And a good volley there from Space Station to kind of answer back and draw the line.
Honestly, they just need something that helps deal with Ricotta. They're lucky on scenarios like this, on pushes like this. There's not a good spot for Ricotta to get with this Strix, to find nice long lines of sight that cover the payload and keep him safe, like you see around the mid-fight. Now he's going to be in a pretty decent position to try to find some shots onto Sadak, and there's a 3-time in space.
It's dodged out. Dome Shield, though, goes down. Assert dominance. Void Gripped up in the air. Goes Sadak. He finally lands back down onto the ground. They lose Zarini to the Pittsburgh Knights. Now G-Bunny into the battle shout, trying to stay alive, fighting within the assert dominance is Sadak and Rochelle. Ares grabs a big kill. No more frontline now for the Knights. Simsalou's going to have to do it all on his own with the help of Ricotta. Kaskudi gets melted down. And that spells defense for SSG. One more point to decide Shattered Desert.
Both teams use so much to close that out, and I'm still kind of trying to live through and process a lot of the ults that were used there, but I don't know how much of it was worthwhile. Some of them that came through from SSG seemed like they came through out of reflex more than out of necessity. Specifically, once you get Void Gripped, I think Sadak, as with that assert dominance, I don't think he needed it after that point. Zarini was almost dead, but he still slams it down, 32% on that charge. Ice Storm coming up really soon, but G-Bunny has the overpower. Midnight coming up very soon. Ares has Sentinels, so not a whole lot, but admittedly, out of the 2 that are available, give me overpower in a 3-3 every day. It's going to make a difference.
Well, the ultimate economy is as barren as the desert we're fighting in, trying to get
Unless
back in.
Does that.
Overpower doesn't get Freeze God off the map as Simsalou grabs the kill onto Ares. Sentinel's not used, so he'll still have him, but that's a nice storm defensively from Simsalou. But he does end up dying. One last shot from Ricotta, 42% for SSG. But the Knights are getting themselves some good trades, and they're right back onto the point with 27%.
G-Bunny's just too good of an off-tank, and it's something you got to deal with. It's 42-42, surpassed by the Knights. Ares has popped those Sentinels. Midnight, 94%. Assert dominance at 76. As long as they can get some damage, stay alive, they will have these ults for one last fight. Not as much can be said for the Knights.
One last chance coming in from Freeze God. Midnight could open up the end to this game, the end to this set. G-Bunny getting melted down, stays alive, but Ares cleans up the kill. Simsalou trying to blink around and stay alive himself. Into the ice block he goes, perfectly timed there, but nobody touches from SSG. You've got to be kidding me. They're winning the fight, but the Knights are on the point, and they win game 5. Simsalou can't believe it.
I don't know who to side with on that one. I'll be honest. SSG deserve to lose because they aren't paying attention to the objective, but they deserve to win because that fight was so overwhelmingly in their favor. And it just goes to show that sometimes you forget about the thing that's important. And that is, well, the giant circle to your right in that last fight where Zarini never left.
Gormizer, how many,
I'm frustrated. I'm genuinely frustrated right now.
Over the last week, I feel like whether it's a payload push that nobody's contesting for some reason or kind of some wonkiness where, there's just no overtime touch. In this case, SSG are running away with the fight, and they just don't send anyone back. I saw kind of, a little bit of a zone from G-Bunny off to the backside of the fight, and just wasn't there. Space Station, they were winning the fight, but didn't win the objective there. Pittsburgh Knights, against all odds, win this one in 7. We're forced to a Game 6 right after this.
Respawn, the official gaming chair of the Paladins Premier League.
Well, don't call it a comeback. The Knights take 2 straight, and they're pretty close. And frankly, again, in theme with the set, monumental comeback here on Shattered Desert. Things weren't looking so great for them at the onset of the game, Kresnik, but again, solid Strix play, playing into that win condition. The first 2 bans, Ruckus, Cassie, snap up the first pick, Strix. It was very clear the way that the Knights wanted to win that game, and dare I say they did it.
I think you'd be right. I would say I think that's a safe assumption that they won that game. They were adapting as the game was going on quite a bit too. Both teams, SSG playing pretty far out of the sight line of the Strix, not really letting Ricotta do a lot, but I mean, it's Strix. He'll find someone at some point. And then as the game was going further, Ricotta was lurking even longer on the sides, waiting on his mount, just like Ares did on Warder's Gate, trying to find those side angles. And high damaging game across the board for everybody, but in that last crucial moment, I'm not sure what happened with Rashao, whether he was CC'd, whether he just jumped at the last second. That's why he ended up on the just on the point as the timer ended. But Knights just clutched it out. They had the right focus in mind at that point.
Yeah, tons of huge damage numbers for, frankly, multiple people in this game. Almost everyone outside of the supports. Coming up on that 6-figure number. Healing numbers about equalized. It did come down to those clutch, round-defining moments. A lot of those, I felt, came from Ricotta on the Strix, 18 and 11. Lots of kills, lots of deaths for Simsulu as well. The front line held it down for the Knights. That's the biggest thing, right? Neither of these front lines or the Knights are massively negative. And that's where I feel that Space Station really attacked them, right? They last picked this Vivian, Wrecker 3. This comp is designed to try and run through these boys, but they held it together long enough for the man behind the scope to find his angles.
Getting that room just made such a big deal for Ricotta not being able to. That was absurd, actually.
Ow.
Jesus.
That was damage, man. Holy.
I don't even know. There's no way to break that down. It's just absurd damage. Ricotta hitting every single headshot at that range is insane. Great bank shot there onto Ares, too. Got saved by the IO healing, but still forcing out the Vivian, making him have to rotate. And I think the high negative KDs on this map, I think it's kind of an effective, just the map in general.
Sure.
You can go in. Where do you get out?
You can't get out, brother.
You really can't get out. It's really a hard commitment you have to make. So no matter what a team is doing, it's going to be like a 3-for-5 or a 3-for-4 trade almost every time.
It's big on Strix, right? We talk again about the bans, and this is the first pick. Ricotta had to step up here. He was pretty clear and cut in the win condition, hits a lot of those big shots in the big moments, and puts on display, and frankly, a couple of those clips. just how much damage you have at the moment.
Yeah.
That burst, that front-loaded ouch, hits the shot onto Vivian, gets the kill there, then immediately has enough damage to just blow through the back half of Ash's HP too. I mean, you can't understand it enough. When you're connecting everything, hitting headshots, he was ringing the bell a lot of that, Ash, and I think that's what kind of helped contribute to actually him winning that 1v1. But it's all part of the Ricotta theorem at this point, man. The more headshots he's going to hit, the more potent he becomes. Ascension Peak is the next map, and like we mentioned, going into this last kind of back half of this best of 7, because SSG won the first 3, they get to pick all of these maps until they either win or lose the set, whichever it may be. And Knights are certainly on the comeback trail at the moment, no longer wanting to deal with the Ghost Feather. They sit him down first and foremost.
I would definitely do that too. After last game, for sure. Such an impactful character that's on the board. You do not want to have to deal with it. I wouldn't be shocked if, I guess, even Willow followed it up and then they picked a backline to start things off, or picked their ideal flanker, depending on what they prefer on this map. We've seen SSG, I think, first pick Cassie in a similar position here, but Khan is still up. Khan's also been banned a couple times this set, and SSG, I think, have looked pretty solid with it throughout, from the start to now.
Kind of like the Cassie of the frontline class for SSG. Both Rashao and Sadat can play this pick extremely well, look extremely good on it, and have the type of impact that you need from your first picked champion. I like his ultimate on this map. Frankly, you can dunk people in the well, you can throw them off the cliff. Super good at the end of the payload push as well. There's plenty of kill volume and to work with the overpower. You just have to connect them. Frankly, a problem that SSG have not really had so far. They've been pretty consistent with their overpowers. Knights, however, will respond with the Barrack Mave. Good, flexible composition, especially with Genos still on the table. And still on the table if SSG lock these two in.
For me, this is SSG telegraphing an IO comp, which means Knights might take it in response. Genos will still be all right, but this is definitely we're going to use Luna to cap the point, and we're just going to walk at you, play our DR. Pretty much the same composition that won them game 1. A very similar style on a kind of similar map in the sense of how you want to rotate it.
You know, when I think about Ascension Peak, it's the biggest I don't know if it's square footage bigger than Bazaar, but they're both big.
Close.
They're big-ass points. This one has 2 statues on it. From the moment I saw this map in the development client, I'm like, well, you probably just won't need as nasty of a front line to get the job done here. I mean, there's inbuilt cover, there's things like that. So typically IO has been attributed to maps like Fish Market and places where you want to throw Luna out because you don't want a player to have to go out there and deal with kind of the openness of it. But Ascension Peak isn't openness. It's it's closed off, and it's maybe a little bit of the other end of the spectrum, but I think for a lot of the same reasons, players can be more useful somewhere else.
Exactly.
Right? That's, I think, the core of why we're kind of having this conversation about IO.
Especially since there's good cover on the point that's still capping it behind the statue.
Yeah.
Luna capping it there is miles
It's probably
better.
low-key, too. It's like you might not see it. If you tuck it appropriately behind a statue, you might just miss it for a little while.
And it's so much value being brought because instead of your players sitting behind that statue, not really trading damage, like you said, they're better off doing something else. And Knights see that coming too. From a mile away, the SSG did kind of telegraph it. They end up with Furia, still good, but now they're going to have to commit their resources to fight that objective.
IO. She is, I think it's safe to say, officially here. She's been picked a ton today so far. Teams are slowly but surely unlocking the potential of this character, figuring out the synergies, where best to use her. Such a unique kit. You know, you have to commend the dev team for pumping out a really unique support. Took a little bit of time to figure out how to splash her into these compositions, but now she's becoming a real asset to these teams. Leon hovered as likely the last
In
selection
this game,
here.
you win or you
No
die.
Genos, but the
There
damage
is
amp's
no
still
middle
available
ground.
for SSG. That's a hell of an end-flame team fight.
Yeah.
It's about getting enough of those off. I don't know who to pick here. I really like both comps.
Tough for me to say. Honestly, it's going to come down, I think, to whatever global ultimate has more impact between the Midnight and the Inflame. If the Midnights can dead stop the Inflame and they don't get anything done in those couple seconds,
Do you just hard hold Scout here just to counter Midnight?
I think so. I think that's how it pretty much always ends up. Plus, late game, once Resilience is online, their shields are a little bit worse, but being able to just not care about the Midnight and just walk straight in and play their own game instead of playing to the Knights' tempo will help SSG a lot.
If you plan for that, can you avoid buying Resilience a little bit longer?
I don't think you want to. Not against Ash. And
Still
IO
enough
to
other
succeed.
stuff to
Yeah,
buy
the
it.
Luna stun, which you never know when it's off CD.
Yeah. It's tough to deal with, man. I'm excited to see IO have such a big impact on this set. Let's get it down to the casters and see if it all comes to an end.
Well, IO back and forth, and in a set of runs, SSG went on theirs first. They win 3 straight. The Pittsburgh Knights grab a .7 on Shattered Desert to stay alive. It surprised both of us down here in the booth. And
More
I think
than just us.
So some Knights players walking by after that game were a little surprised as well.
And Cuss literally running by goes, "Yep, we shouldn't have won that game," and then just kept moving. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's where their mindset is at." But they're still alive in it. And
They are.
honestly, that kind of surprise win can do more for your mentality than a win that you got maybe outright.
Yeah.
I mean, you're losing a lot of that, and I think it's going to be more impactful. Not because the Knights get the win, but because SSG, if I'm frustrated from
Yes.
that, imagine how they feel.
I
They're
agree.
winning this fight so immensely, and then that's what happens?
Either you're frustrated and say, we should have won, let's win now, or kind of curling back into the corner, and that's not what SSG are doing here. They grab the first couple of kills, getting aggressive onto the Knights. They're actually starting to tumbleweed a few more kills through here. Ares, volley of a few to start off this game, 66% for SSG as they try to zone out PK from the retake.
Couple of good shots here. Could be all they need. Freeze God playing Eevee.
Body block.
Not going to be able to body block him completely, but, well, they eliminate pretty much anyone and everyone that's in their way.
And they're going to grab point number 1 for it. 5 streak for Freeze God. Grabbing the Eevee one more time. The juggle, you mentioned it on Shadow Desert. The back and forth of Eevee and Maeve in this set continues one more, and that's what we made him play on King of the Ring, maybe for good reason. 2 of the best in the world at doing it. SSG grab point number 1. Look to move 1 point closer now with an offensive cap to ending this set. And I kind of levied the question, do you act frustrated and kind of woe is me, or do you come out swinging and a little frustrated saying we should have won that game? And it looks like that's the route that SSG are going to take.
Yeah, me personally, I'm still tilted. Like
Sure.
I'm frustrated right now. Even I'm just lost in that moment. But it seems like they have done a pretty good job of shaking it off, kind of recognizing, look, guys, like we were winning that fight, and we were winning that game, and in 2 steps to the right fashion, maybe 3,
Right.
4, 5, however many away where Chow was towards the end there. We're winning that game. Just shrug it off. We made a mistake, and let's just keep going. We know we can beat these guys. Let's just keep our heads about ourselves, and it's very difficult to do. I'm going to be honest. Again,
Yeah.
if I'm still feeling upset about it, it takes a much stronger mind than mine to be able to get you into the right area. And if they can do it, it's a good way to start it off 1-0, although they haven't made much progress or leeway on breaking this defense or pushing this payload.
Yep.
So with a minute left, they have kind of a lot more to crack than just the shell of frustration that is left from last game.
Yeah, and I think Ares and Rakata are going to have a big thing to say, whether it's on offense or defense. Enlightenment confirms the double for Rakata as Ares grabbed a couple for himself as well. Identical slash lines. It's kind of the carousel of Leon, Cassie, Eevee, and Maeve throughout this game where, maybe there's an exception with the Strix here and there, but in reality, those have been the 4 big ones.
30 seconds
And, with 30 seconds left, the Knights are feeling okay on defense, getting the payload moving forward. But this is an area where Rakata will probably feel somewhat comfortable getting some free high ground with the Leon.
Yeah, especially, you can see where he's standing right now, but worst case scenario, he's going to be able to move right back up to the balcony outside of his base and kind of keep that pressure looking directly down onto the payload as it turns around this last corner, but it has to make it through that archway, and Mitow's under pressure from behind.
Simsalou grabs the kill. Another double for Rakata. That one's not with the Enlightenment. He has it back off cooldown. 2 for Simsi, 2 for Rakata. And defense successful for the Knights. 5 ultimates ready to roll for them. Only Hexafire really out of range for Space Station Gaming, but an important defense from the Knights to avoid going down 2-0.
Not only avoiding going down 2-0, but honestly, any point that the Knights get, in my mind, is a mental marker against SSG. That is just going to maybe kind of lay more weight onto them. And
Sure.
you don't get to think about it too often, but tilt factor 100% comes into these games. And I mean, it's part of that, like, how resilient are you in your mentality for a game? Sometimes you can just shrug off a loss. Sometimes you can shrug off even something that should have been a win that turns into a loss and have it not affect you in any way. And sometimes it's going, every little detail is going to start bogging you down, right? If the Knights get a point, you're going to be upset about it. And it does depend on how SSG take it. They normally are not that negative, so
Yeah.
not surprising to see them kind of hold true and keep up the fight.
Seem like a very level-headed bunch, and the start of this Ascension peak would confirm that somewhat. That's a nice storm from Freeze God. Down to 110 health. Saved by the ice block. Rochelle gets the kill under Ricotta. Be Gone used. Doesn't find much. Not getting a lot of percentage here onto the point just yet. Nobody really fighting back into it. The contest is happening long enough. Now an Inflame for Space Station Gaming. This is where they'll look to really snowball this team fight, and Aries hitting his shot with the wings burning at his back is doing just that.
Aries on the payload push versus Aries around the mid fights. This game has been two different Aries that we're seeing. And if you get this payload, or this mid fight Aries on a payload push, then it's easy conversions for SSG all day.
Yep.
Just depends on how much he's going to be able to do here. Not too far aggressive for SSG, so the Knights should be able to get another touchdown. And they're even going to be able to get to the back line, but it's at the cost of Simsalo.
Hey, you trade out the overpower for the assert dominance, but you're fine with that because you get the 2 first bloods in this team fight. Now just 3 members of the Knights trying to fight back in, make it 2. Ricotta trades out 1, but he's the last one standing, and that's 99, turning into 100 for Space Station. They grab themselves 1 more mid. They're going to try to win the fight after the fight. Keep this payload moving. Actually, overtime touched by Simsaloo. Maybe called it a little too soon. The respawns are in from SSG, but at this point, the stagger is so heavy. Luna not in range, or was in range, rather. Finally, point number 2 captured for SSG.
They kept that one about as long as he could at 99% without actually accomplishing anything if you're the Knights. A lot of one-man staggers. Very well played from them to keep it going that long, but there's a certain point where you kind of know, okay, this is just to frustrate them, or I don't even know at that point, other than to keep your mentality into it for the Knights here in that fight. Much longer than you need to be, but either way, you're going to be able to accomplish it. Respawns will come through, but it starts off with a good push for SSG, 50% of the way in 30 seconds. Maybe a snag there as Aries goes down, but again, him around that point fight was huge for me in terms of the factor that he's able to kind of apply. And if he can just bring a semblance of that to this push, it's pretty much smooth sailing for SSG into a win.
And this is looking a lot better of a push for Space Station Gaming. 15 streak for Freeze God. The Eevee starting to heat up, or has been heating up. And Sadak, honestly, is continuing to impress me on this ruckus in this game. Front line has been ping-ponging back and forth between both teams, and right now it looks like Space Station are going to feel comfortable about that as Inflame used by Mittal. Zarini getting rid of Freeze God, though, at the start. It's going to be a big boon to the Pittsburgh Knights defense.
With those coming through, not only a big boon to their defense, but they're going to get aggressive with this. They should not only be able to ride this into another, I'm going to call it maybe 30 seconds burned off the clock, but they should be able to find a couple of kills. They're not getting anywhere near as aggressive as I thought they were going to. I think they're kind of aware that Eevee is a big threat on a map like this. The larger the map, the easier it is to backdoor if you get behind them.
True.
That's just one small misstep and maybe 2 big steps away from this payload. Could end the game for you without you being even able to react.
Wormhole in from Freeze God. The time to react is now if you're the Knights. Simsaloo has the Midnight, not using it. Sadak a little bit far forward, dashes out, but not out of range of Simsaloo and his daggers. First blood over to the Pittsburgh Knights, but Aries, a big double kill, maybe keeps them going on this push, but Ricotta's got himself the high ground. He's doing enough damage to keep SSG at bay.
Couple of good shots. A good angle here for Aries as long as he goes unnoticed for a little while. Finally gets sniffed out a little bit, but they should be able to touch for overtime, assuming someone touches the objective. There it is. That it's going to come through. They were just waiting for a little bit. But with Aries going down, a good trade against Ricotta. It's definitely going to favor the defenders.
Sadak maybe getting away, but it's not to be as G-Bunny finishes off that kill. Freeze God's still on this offside for the Knights, making it very difficult for them to move far forward. Zarini getting a few plug shots put in. Overtime is on. Rochelle, the lone tank, now fighting from the point. Sadak looks to re-engage on this fight. A big Inflame as well keeps this fight going for Space Station Gaming, but the first blood is G-Bunny onto Ares. That's a lot of damage now that's mitigated. Sadak, though, returning one onto Simpsy. Maybe keeps this one into the balance. Shoulder bash from G-Bunny, though, keeps him alive just for a moment.
Unfortunately for them, alive doesn't always matter. I mean, we've learned that twice now if you're SSG. You have to be a little closer to the payload or to the point. Either way. That one, though, was not as much their fault. Maybe too caught up in the fight. Some good knockarounds from G-Bunny to make sure that you can't touch the objective more than anything else. But there's a lot of moments. I don't want to say it's sloppy from SSG, but you can definitely see some moments where it normally wouldn't happen that way, right? It's something is just a little off for some of these. But they do still have, at least so far, been dominating these mid-fights. 2-2 raise the score, but 600 credits in their favor, more items in their pockets, and a lot more control around these mids than they've had, than the Knights have had all game.
Yeah, they've got themselves some resilience, some bulldozer as well. So the Knights an uphill battle. Beacon used. Pushes back one. Cuscuti, though, keeps himself out on an island, and he dies for it. Zarini and Ares trading back 1-for-1. Assert dominance from G-Bunny. He's going to do a good job of zoning. Rakata finally getting involved in some of these mids. Great flank there from Ares. Gets the kill onto Simslu. As Rakata graces to the side, and for the first time in this game, the Knights are now zoning for a mid-fight of their own.
This is Ice Minds calling back at this point in my mind, where it's just saying, you know what? You were up, or we were up 2-2. We had won every mid-fight, and then you came through and took our point. So now we're going to come through and take your point, and you're up in this 2-2 kind of scenario. Although 78% is where he gets stalled out for now. With Ares getting a kill onto Cuss, that is definitely going to stall out and thwart the Knights' fight. At least start giving some credence to what SSG have around here.
Yeah, I think you have to just kind of drop back now if you're the Knights, and that's what it looks like they're doing. Setting up a deep zone. They're going to have a lot to break through here. No ultimates immediately ready. Maybe the second Inflame of this mid. Soon to be for Midtown. Midnight, though, up sooner from Simsalute. Pirate Shanty rings out over the speakers. Couple daggers into Rishao. Just needs one more shot. G-Bunny finds it, but Sadak and Ares now re-engaging with an ultimate of their own. The Inflame is paying off in dividends. Zarini drops down the dome shield. The Ares wasn't ready for it, and he got the kill. Pittsburgh Knights complete the mid. Grab themselves point number 3, one away from forcing a game 7.
That was so well timed. Zarini was one shot. Like, that was so close for Ares. And I genuinely didn't think he was going to be able to get that dome shield off. I thought it was going to be too late at the end of it. But even then, the perfect positioning for him. And afterward, I'm going to say, you can plan a lot of things, and I'm sure this was in his mind. But that turret was perfectly in the shot, so that Ares could not find anything on the Zarini. I mean, even just a side step to the right, it's going to be a little bit of damage for you, but you're going to find that shot onto Zarini and bring that shield down.
Ares is now sitting at 20 and 10. And Freeze got it 10 and 4, so the damage dealer's looking good. Simsalu on the other side is at 4 and 13. Kind of hanging in the balance, but ultimate rotation objective play, this is kind of that conversation to have. Your slash lines may look great if you're SSG, but those small moments, you know, Cuscuti now at 2 and 11, you won't be worried about it. That's a big kill. If they can convert that into some push, they'll be feeling A-okay. They don't, okay, he got, did Simsalu hit daggers or did Freeze God just blink into the well?
I'm pretty sure Freeze God just blinked into the well. I'm sure we can get a really good angle on the replay for that one, but I'm pretty sure Simsalu just ended up in the well there.
That's an arcade game.
There's 10 times out of 10, you replicate that, there's only one time he lands in the well there, and it's right there.
I thought he might have hit a few more daggers, but not to be. G-Bunny drops down the assert dominance. Now 3 members of Space Station Gaming trying to prevent a Game 7. Enlightenment connects from Rakata, grabs the kill. No cooldown refresh. Nobody in range. Sadak be gone. Back to base. Pittsburgh Knights, welcome to Game 7.
Push it as far as they can. And again, whether you want to say it's tilt on one side, enthusiasm on the other, the Knights are definitely starting to feel this. SSG, as you can see by their cam, are not. They are definitely starting to feel it. And the Knights are 1 game away. 4 points if they can do it. in order to complete a full reverse sweep. And I think, honestly, that win on Shattered Desert might have just shattered
Yeah.
SSG's mentality for this one. They hold up some resilience through that, but I mean, we saw good slash lines. It just didn't come and translate to a win.
I mean, now it's a best of one, and we're in a confidence and momentum scenario. Despite going up 3 at the beginning of this set, the Knights got the wind at their back, and they're pushing forward into Game 7, deciding Game 7 right after this break.
The Paladins Premier League is brought to you by Evil Mojo, developers of Paladins.
Don't call it a comeback. I mean, this is real now. This is becoming reality right in front of our very eyes. The very first reverse sweep ever in the PPL. Resnick, I don't know what to say, man, at this point. SSG were up 3-0. Put yourself back in the coaching shoes for a moment. What do you
don't do that to me right now.
What do you tell these guys to kind of recenter them and get them to close this one out before making history in all the wrong ways?
I think it has to come to their drafts. I think as soon as they picked that Ruckus Cassie, I said, "What's an IO
telegraphed?"
draft?" I think it's too telegraphed. I said IO immediately. Knights take it from them. They end up with Furia. Midtown does okay, but the draft, I think, the key of it not having a point tank was just too much of a weakness for them as the game went on.
Take a look at the post-game stats here. See what the numbers can tell us. Again, a pretty stellar damage performance from Rukata, but that's kind of what we've come to expect. Nobody within 20,000 of him, really, from SSG side. Aries coming close, and Aries having a pretty electric game in his own right on the Cassie. A lot of those moments just getting overshadowed. 5-13 for Simsolo, kind of a notable feed there, but still it was enough for the Knights to be able to overcome. 3-11 for Cuscuti on the IO. I mean, like I said, there were some really electric moments there, specifically for Aries towards the start of this game, and even through the mid-game, pretty solid in favor of SSG, but we're never able to close out those conversions.
I mean, our Portuguese-speaking friends in chat were right. They were saying Aries Deus that whole game, and they weren't wrong.
Yeah.
Aries was playing like a god from start to finish for sure, but the Knights just had the better objective, focused composition. I think that's what it came up to. Spacestation were winning some of the fights pretty dominantly on their side, but when you look at the point tank on the other side, being able to do that, along with the backing of the IO pocket with that 25% DR. Zerini, I feel like, as the tank, the best performer on Knights, was able to just do so much.
Just an iron march to the back line, cleaning up a lot of members that were very crucial to the survival of SSG. Barrick, he's really kind of gone under the radar as this sleeper, almost overpowered character on the front line. So flexible, so much damage, decent self-sustain, a great team fighting ultimate. Unfortunately, some awkward moments there. Freeze blinks into the well. In the heat of the couple of heated gamer moments here, you know, the worst could definitely happen to even the best of the EV players. Freeze, I'm sure, wishes he could have that one back. But again, if I'm SSG, I got to recenter myself. They lost 3 straight now. This is the time to turn it around. It's do or die. They get to pick the map. But again, I'm not trying to make the conversation too heavily around the maps, especially in these best of 7s. When you get towards the end of the set,
what's even left?
The map is the map, right? You know, nobody, I think, is feeling any particular way about it.
What is left?
This is just wild. I mean, the bans were, again, Timbermill, I believe.
I have it all right here.
Frog Isle.
Yeah, Frozen Frog, Fish Timber were the bans. I think Brightmarsh is still left.
Wow.
Brightmarsh is left. Serpent is left. Bazaar is left. A couple options they could choose to go to. I mean, SSG, I think it's Bright or Serpent. Potentially Serpent, I think, is definitely the more comfortable
I'm
place
guessing
for them to land.
Bright.
You're guessing Bright?
No,
All right.
they always lose on Bright, don't they?
Always. I guess they had that really close game last time, but they want to go there this time. You beat me. I guess, I mean, after yesterday, maybe I would tell them to go Serpent.
Yeah.
Considering the heartbreaker they had, they don't want to have the second heartbreaker in a row on another map for sure for them. But Brightmarsh, they won Jag. It's a similar map in a lot of ways.
They don't have to
in terms
worry
of what you
about
can play.
Strix here. Or do they?
If Stigma can play Kinessa on this map,
Well, I don't know. You could cite Stigma to play a sniper anywhere at any moment.
I was saying if that works, now you take this top tier pick. I think it could work. But with these bans, honestly, SSG might just be taking it for themselves. Kanga first picked it, but they want Cassie instead for that tank shred and the potential scout counter to Strix's stealth.
God knows it worked for them last game. Ares was really one of the few, I think, bright spots for SSG from start to finish, right? No blinking into the well, no kind of awkward moments for him on the Cassie. In fact, we just had moments where we're just shaking our head. Almost looked like he turned the aimbot on at moments, hitting everything in Cassie's kit, rolling in, executing in the team fight. The Knights will respond with Khan Eevee. Looks like a Barrack Ash for SSG. Who do you like at the early onset?
So far, I like SSG because I noticed that Knights, when they take the flankers away from SSG, they still perform well. I think SSG have had a flanker almost every round, but that very first match on Warder's Gate with Eevee and Maeve Band,
Yep.
that was a dominant performance for SSG. So maybe they'll settle back into that. Maybe Knights. I think Knights play very hard into the flanking part of the flanker. I mean, we saw constantly they always, on Ascension defenses, threw someone into the backline. They threw Leon down the stairs. They threw Maeve down the stairs. Someone was always doing that pressure. With that, I think they might be too stuck into that mindset potentially with this Eevee. And SSG, depending on how this draft ends up, they might have the chance to counter it.
Well, the Knights certainly mulling it over. Very little blaster presence in this set. Lots of Cassies, Leons, Eevee if you want to throw her in there. When I say blaster, though, I'm more of thinking, you know, Bomb Kings, Drogos, Willows, the blasters, not just necessarily blast damage mitigated champions as a whole. They still won't grab it for the time being. They want all the cards on the table before they make their final decision. As is pretty standard procedure. It's really up to SSG now. What support do you want? I'm kind of feeling a Genos personally, maybe an IO. Genos
Could be Damba even.
pretty damn safe here on Brightmarsh.
I would say Genos. It could be Genos.
I mean, it depends what they want for Freeze, right?
I think Freeze might take Bomb King, and then they might take Damba to go with it. That is my guess. It could be Genos also with it, because Genos is also great with BK, but having that extra sustain. So Genos coming out for sure and having that. And then the Pip, so double support. The Pip was really good for Freeze at the start of the last time they played this map.
The start.
Definitely fell off.
The start.
I mean, if SSG, if they can take it early, it could work, but they have to do that. And
I don't mind it,
Knights
man.
have such a good early game stall comp.
We gotta shift it around. We gotta change it up. Oh, they're gonna do it. Are they gonna do it? Strix 10th pick here on a small, tight, line-of-sighty map. No hard flanker per se for SSG, but Pip can certainly fill that role. Don't go for the Bomb King. No Drogos. No funny business about it. I don't mind, though, this composition for SSG. It feels like get it done 4-0 to 4-2, somewhere in that neighborhood, like you've been doing all set long.
Single breath to take a
Or you're
life.
not getting it done at all, right? You gotta flip the momentum on its
Yeah.
head. You gotta come out swinging, hit the Knights hard, daze them, make them get back on their feet, and hopefully the game's over before they can get the gloves back up. This has been a huge momentum shift in favor of the Knights. Whether it works or doesn't, I like the move. It's decisive from SSG. They know what they need to do. The strengths of their comp are very obvious. And it's always obvious when you pick these early game comps. It's about, can you slow it down? Can the Knights do it with what they got?
I think so. Look at all that sustain in Narcon Furia. That's going to be really tough for SSG to end the game 4-0 on, and that's what I think they have to do.
Could it be, folks, the first reverse sweep in Paladins Premier League history? It's my honor to give it down to the casters for Game 7.
And it's our honor to bring it to you guys. It should be a fun one. Shattered Desert. Look back at that score 2 games ago. That gives the Pittsburgh Knights a new lease on this set. 2 games later, here we are, Game 7. One last one to decide it right here on Bright Marsh.
Would you say it shattered the mold of the PPL?
It did.
It's breaking through for what we have. The Knights kind of on a monumental run as of right now. We've seen a lot of teams make this get stopped right here at map 7. The question for them will be, are you going to put up? Are you going to fall down? Where are you going to land with all of this as they come through? A good draft, but a lot of pressure onto Ricotta, of all people, to kind of pull a stigma from the minor league, make this sniper work on Bright Marsh, and make it look good in the process.
This is the first real kind of blaster battle, as Nick points out. I mean, it's always been Eevee and Maeve, you know, a little bit of something else here and there, but Pip versus an Eevee, really going to be an important one in this matchup. First blood, Simpsy. Second blood, Zerini. All Pittsburgh all day to start off Game 7 here on Bright Marsh. And they're at 63%. First couple of ultimates starting to get charged up. Freeze God, though, with an answer back. Now looking to flank in. 87% for them. It might be onto him to get a touch. Rochelle into the back door. Gets Void gripped up and over. They're going to start falling like dominoes here. Pittsburgh Knights looking great for point number 1, but still a chance for SSG.
Couple of good shots there. Gets rid of Ricotta. A nice wall, though. Gets rid of SSG's touch. Knights are going to just be able to stand there and take it.
And that is it. They just throw up the wall there.
Wow.
Aries not able to dodge roll in. Maybe a little bit early on the re-aggress from Rochelle and Sadak, but timing maybe just a little bit off. And Flame used now from the Knights. They can push this advantage a little bit more. They're doing so. Big kill on a Midtown. Big kill on a Sadak. Now you look at Aries and Freeze holding down this flank, needing to stall out this payload, and they've at least done so just for the moment.
I'd love to look at the slash lines already. Aries is not having a great time right now. Actually, only 3 and 2. I thought I'd seen his name pop up maybe a little more often than that as he's coming through. Top damage, but it feels like he is getting a little focus fired here from the Knights. I've seen a lot of pressure. Simsalute, his 1 kill is onto him. I believe Ricotta as well as one of those has been able to come through. And Ricotta, I mean, this has its merits. We've seen snipers on this map work. Seen it in the Premier League. We've seen it in the Console League. We've seen it in the Minor League. It definitely has a home. But I'm not feeling too confident about it right now. It's shaky at best. He's been playing it pretty aggressively, though. So as time goes on, he might be able to kind of shift his style and start making these kills fall through for them a little more often.
Teams are fighting tooth and nail for every inch of this map right now. That's a through time and space connects for Midtown. Under Ricotta, good target. He's 1, 3, and 4 on the Strix. This is a bit of a mid-round check-in on the Bright Marsh Strix. Sadak with a nice double kill there as well. So this one stalled out just for the time being. They're going to need more out of Ricotta to convert these mid-fights into successful caps.
Good angle right here. Could absolutely find a kill on a Midtown. Not going to get the flare. Not going to be able to get round 2 of bullets from the Talon rifle. But it doesn't matter if he can find a different angle. It is that ever-present threat. That is the lowest and maybe most uncomfortable he has been throughout this set with Freeze God. Right there around the corner. Finally taken down. Opens this up. 30 seconds left. But Bright Marsh, smaller map, means that this payload dream still exists. You're just maybe going to have to commit a little more towards the end here than you would like to.
And I think, you know, even if they don't push this in, and they're able to make Spacestation use Evil Mojo, assert dominance, maybe even the Scout, although Scout vision-wise won't have as much value. Might be okay going into the next one, tied up 1-1. Aries trying to sniff out the flying Simsalute here. Sadak, assert dominance down onto the payload, but it's killing off G-Bunny. There's the Evil Mojo. That's going to buy them kill number 1. Sadak getting sustained by so many different targets right now. Lives with 400 health and grabs a kill on a G-Bunny. Zerini's able to answer back. The fight rages on for the Pittsburgh Knights. Seismic crash down to the left, locks up Freeze God. The kills are for the Knights here. Into the ice block goes Simpsy, down goes Aries, down goes Midtown, in goes the payload. And a big fight from the Knights puts them up 2-0.
Zerini had a great call there at the end, throwing out his ult just to make sure he can prolong it. Stuns out Freeze God, makes his life last just long enough. I mean, that's 2 DPS and a healer there towards the end, but him in spirit kind of guiding that forward, making sure it's locked up where it needs to. Very good follow-up from the team. Undying game so far from Cuss as well. It's a very, very good start for them.
Yeah.
But the biggest issue, actually what would have been a huge issue for me, was that they used so many ults and didn't get maybe much out of it, or would coming into this next fight without them. They've charged up Inflame, they've got Flashbang, they've got Ice Storm. Granted, they're not the best suite of ultimates that you've ever seen,
right,
but they are coming into this Inflame specifically with an advantage because of that.
This is where the Knights may be able to capitalize. They get the best of both worlds, as you point out. Use a lot SSG, and they don't get the defense. How do you use them now? If you're the Knights, Inflame used first. Look for some aggression now from the Knights. As Freeze got looking to peel back just a little bit. So Inflame times out, or it will here in just a moment. Catches a little bit of damage. But well defended there from SSG.
Good shots. Ricotta, again, you had mentioned it last round. I mentioned it last round. I think it's intrinsically there. But he has to go big. Can't die off like that if they want to win this mid. Potentially put themselves up 3-0 here on Bright Marsh. A lot going right for SSG right now, but they need to get rid of G-Bunny.
G-Bunny's able to battle shout his way to health just for a couple more steps. Pittsburgh Knights now at 72%, still fighting from the point despite a 4v5 disadvantage. Watch out for maybe an Evil Mojo, keeps his eyes peeled. Simsalou blinks on through. Evil Mojo connects onto Zarini, but is there any follow-up damage through time and space to confirm? Gets a kill onto Simpsy. I don't know if that was through time and space, maybe just a normal kill a moment before when Simsalou flew on through. Cuss Cutie gets a kill onto Sadak, climbing up now for SSG.
Almost has Inflame twice. It's the second time coming up, but Seismic Crash, Overpower are coming up with it. And 99%, it's opening up the door for Knights real big.
Freeze God melting down. Simsalou grabs the kill. Sadak trying to find the assert dominance, gets a stun, but into the ice block. Simsalou and Ricotta in the meantime getting huge kills. The Strix finally starting to hit its mark. That spells 3 for the Knights, 1 point away from history in the PPL.
I don't even care if that gets a kill on Sadak. That Overpower is one of the best Overpowers we've had, only because of how much it stops Sadak from touching the objective. It just yoinks him right back out of there. And much like they have kind of ripped the hopes from SSG of winning this set away, they are walking it down. 40% covered so far, 2 minutes left. And still undying right now is this Furia. Freeze God looking to try and change that.
Well, backs against the wall here, Spacestation Gaming. And they're getting pushed further back. Ricotta, double kill. Payload rounding the final corner now. Minute and 45 seconds left to do so. No room for error for SSG. Some ultimates starting to get ready to go here for the Knights. And they are knocking on the door of a 4-0 win on Bright Marsh, starting with that Ice Storm.
Simsalou being able to kind of get that control up on the high ground. They're coming around the last corner. A good connect from Ricotta. Flashbang's up. He's going to go down. Inflame coming back up one more time, but I think there's going to be a little bit of a lull here for SSG. They finally get a little bit of space, a little bit of breathing room, it feels like, for the first time really since Shattered Desert, honestly. Inflame coming up, Flashbang available. And honestly, if I'm G-Bunny right now, I'm fine with the timer going on a little longer. Maybe I get Overpower. Maybe that helps me at the end of the game, helps me end the game if things go well.
This
nice shot.
Start to this defense brought to you by Freeze God and Sadak. Getting rid of Ricotta was so important there. And sort of that flash shot, a little bit of that AoE from Sadak was able to confirm the kill onto Ricotta. So now with 45 seconds left, things looking okay for Space Station Gaming. The Inflame from the Knights is going to try to turn things around, doing so right now. Big double kill for G-Bunny. Cuss Cutie with the big stun, flies backwards, gets the kill himself. And that's a fight back to get to the payload. It's moving forward. In the meantime, they've sent Simsalou forward to keep this payload moving.
Not only is it moving forward, Cuss undying, double the healing overall, being the driving factor for this. Makes sense for him to be the most veteran. They get the kill onto Sadak. They're coming around the last corner. 15 seconds left. They might not need them all, but overtime definitely seeming like a possibility.
Look for the Evil Mojo. Can they confirm the kills? They cannot. Down goes the Dome Shield. Rachao, maybe the last line of defense here for Space Station Gaming. Ares up onto the high ground. They're going to kill off Barrack. That might be the last person contesting. Assert Dominance does connect from Sadak. Maybe just a little bit too late. He has to buy time for the rest of his team to come back into this fight. Ice Storm awaiting for Simsalou now. Back up onto the high ground. Sadak falls down. Freeze God throws his body onto the pile. Ares does the same. Rachao, one last chance. It's not enough. Pittsburgh Knights, sign your name in the history books. Reverse sweep for PK.
all of it falls apart on Shattered Desert for SSG. And then there to pick up the remains, ready and willing, are the Knights. A great fight from them all the way back up to the top. And again, Cuss, during the end of that one, has to be where my eyes are at. Very good game from Simsalou. Surprisingly enough, Rakata not really that present during that last game.
Yeah.
But you see this Furia, tons of kills, no deaths, and really well-timed and well-used in flames. I think Cuss kind of the driving soul for the Knights during that last one. But definitely shattered through Shattered Desert for SSG.
That is a way to start this Friday at PPL. We still got one more game, by the way. And that's the first reverse sweep we have ever seen.
Yeah.
And, you know, I brought it up at the beginning of this game. You have to look back at Shattered Desert. That was SSG's game to lose there towards the end, and they just don't touch the point. Pittsburgh Knights take advantage of that space.
I don't even think there's not even a need for VOD review. I mean, you go back, you can look at other things maybe you could have done in the last few maps, but at the end of the day, you know what the issue was. It was not paying attention to the objective. That's where they fell apart. Knights win, and even after they say they shouldn't have won Shattered Desert, they get themselves a set.
You know who's happy? Envy. This pulls that gap just a little bit further for them. They're playing right after this. We'll send it back to the desk to break things down.
Huge congratulations to the Pittsburgh Knights. They have made history, completed the reverse sweep. Some teams have come close to doing, but never quite, from being down 3-0. Huge ups to them. It takes incredible mental fortitude. I mean, we started at 1. It is just about 4 o'clock here, so a 3-hour slog through this best-of-7 set. And through a lot of close games, that's what made this so tough and so monumental, Kresnik, is that these were tough losses even early on, right? These were not, you know, those are the worst ones to stomach. When you get kind of blasted 4-0, in my opinion, those are a little easier to kind of shrug off and forget about. But when you were close, when you had a great start to some of these early first 3 maps and still lose it, that's where it becomes tough.
Yeah, for sure. This is that best-of-1 mental fortitude thing that the Knights were talking about, right? They say they treat every single game like a best-of-1. Being down 3-0 after really close games where that res maybe just wasn't in time on Ice Mines, all these little things adding up, they still managed to pull it out, even in these crazy close games like Shattered, as Gore mentioned.
Yeah.
Still being able to say, wow, we barely won that, but we can still do this. That takes a lot of fortitude.
The numbers, what do they mean, Mason? There's a lot of big healing numbers when you look at the side of the Pittsburgh Knights. Cuss Cutie, an incredible game on Fury, 148K, nearly doubling what Midtow was able to put out. Freeze helping keep SSG in contention in the sustained category. Great damage. Frankly, he was 6-0 at one point, kind of leading the charge. But every frontliner needs that good backline support. I mean, 11-0. One of the most veteran supports in the game. Frankly, I can't wait to hear the interview from this guy, kind of who was the rallying point for the Pittsburgh Knights. You have to imagine Cuss was one of the loud and proud ones carrying that banner. I think it's great for the Knights to be able to come back and show that they have that fortitude. That was kind of one of my concerns about Cuss is, you know, when things aren't going good, how does this guy bounce back? Clearly, after that Game 7 performance, he was never even close to giving it up. Again, let me just say it, 11-0. Crushed the healing charts as well. Ain't nothing more he could have left out on the field today.
Imagine tying a Strix in frags.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. That's crazy that Cuss was able to do that. And I think Cuss, in terms of carrying a team's momentum, does that really well. If his team has downward momentum, I think he might help that snowball, but the opposite way too. If your team's feeling good, he's feeling good.
It's always been it, yeah.
Really bringing your team in, and that's why I think the Knights kind of have a little bit of both, right? They have Bunny to always keep the team even-keeled, Zarini to do the same, and Cuss, if they're really snowballing, Cuss can help them make that roll even further.
Yeah, for sure. You know, let the winners run. I always say Cuss Cutie doing a great job there. Frankly, across all of the games, I want to commend him as well for the amount of IO play. Like you said, you think he's played it, including the 2 games from yesterday
he said,
today.
Right before the interview, he was like, that was the 3rd time I played IO.
Yeah.
Yesterday,
guys.
So,
he hasn't played a lot of it. He certainly looked good on it. I can't wait to hear the thoughts of the Pittsburgh Knights in the post-game interview.
Thank you very much, guys. Sitting here with the victors, a 7-game set, the first ever reverse sweep we've had confirmed here in the PPL. Teams have gotten close, but it's you guys who officially confirm it. Initial thoughts, what does that tell you about your team? The resilience to hang in there, you're down 3-0, and then you win 4 straight.
First 3 maps, it felt a little all too familiar. It felt like last split when things were going bad, there was never like that reset button. There was never that fix. The first 3 games, I felt like I was worried about others. I felt like I was worried about myself. We were thinking about what if they do this rather than what if I do this. And we talked about it and said, let's flip that switch. Next 4 maps, we worried only about what we were doing. We stopped talking about what went wrong. We just provided fixes one after another.
So we caught a little emotions, not only from you, but also from SSG. After Shattered Desert, everyone seemed a little confused in your booth as well going on with it. What was the mentality? I mean, right there, you win this game. Everybody, I mean, including us, are confused that you were the ones to walk away with it with that fight going catastrophically for you.
Well,
what were the comms like?
I thought it was a joke. I saw the victory, and I'm like, is this another bug? Should this have been a defeat? I had no idea. And I waited a second, and he's like, yeah, I meant to do that. I'm like, oh, okay, nice.
We had no idea what happened.
Yeah.
Sweeney went to the toilet first as well, so we didn't know until he came back and he said, I just walked off point and perfectly timed it, and we're like,
Kept you in suspense for a little bit?
yeah.
Well, that was a big momentum swap. I mean, that's where everything started. Got you guys back in this set. Simsaloo, that's a bit of a joking one. You got to go up against Freeze God yet again. Evie and Maeve were a big conversation piece throughout this set. Both of you guys kind of trading back and forth. Do you feel like you had the upper hand here despite losing in King of the Ring earlier?
I felt like when we were matching, I won 2 games and he won 2 games in most of his lanes. He kind of avoided me for a bit though sometimes, which, is to their strategy, but kind of caught me off guard. I expected more egos, My ego is massive, his ego is massive, especially after
you can't
Kings of the
break
Hill.
Sim's ego. It's invulnerable.
True.
Well, you complete the first reverse sweep, a 4-3 victory over SSG. Pretty monumental for you as a team as well, especially as we're starting to round out the split. So congratulations on your win, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
INAP, powering the control room for the Paladins Premier League.